across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is the James Whale Show with Andre Walker in for James Whale and Asher Gould in for himself, as ever. Yeah. I just want to say, before we go to the next segment, congratulations to the Sun newspaper and indeed all the viewers and listeners of Talk and right across the country who have got this awful, awful man who murdered Jimmy Mizran recalled back to prison. Just to remind you of what's been going on, Mizran, apologies, what's been going on is that the BBC have been promoting a drill rapper called Ten, who was the murderer, Jake Fari. He was released from prison on licence after a 14-year life sentence. Who knew? And then he was writing all sorts of things and singing all sorts of things about the way that he enjoyed murdering people with knives. Absolute scumbag. The Sun newspaper discovered it. The BBC did not happen to notice when they played all of his music. Well, they tend to not notice a lot of criminality, don't they, the BBC?
Yeah, they never do.
No, it's unbelievable. It's normally related to young people as well.
Never knew that was going on.
Oh, God, what was he doing in that dressing room? Yeah. Can't work it out with a couple of teenage girls. Unbelievable. But anyway, I want to congratulate our colleagues at The Sun. I want to thank you. And the reason I want to thank you is because often you forget, as the viewers and listeners and tweeters, that you're part of this campaign to make Britain better, and we appreciate it, and I think it's important.
By the way, that's good. But the show's so much better, isn't it, without James Wales? We've really built up a chemistry, and
well, we have built up a chemistry.
He won't be listening or anything, so we can talk about it.
Look,
isn't it much better?
Look, I like
without that Wales shouting, James Wales shouting here, Asher. This is much better.
I do like James, but I think it's more fun. What?
More fun, and
what is that? It's like a vision.
Is this a video from? Is he really there? You didn't? Did you hear any of that? No, oh, good. No, it's great to see you, man. I'm really missing you. This show's rubbish without you. When are you going to get back here, man?
Well, hopefully.
What are you doing, skiving off like this?
I know, it's a really bad thing to do, getting this flu.
Yeah.
As you can hear, I can't talk.
Kyle apologises, Jeremy Kyle. He gave it to everyone.
Well, don't talk about that.
No, we can't talk about what you get up to with Jeremy Kyle.
No. Well, honestly.
No.
But perhaps we all need to go back to wearing masks.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, we look better with them anyway. There were some nice designs out there, man.
Yeah, you used to love yours.
I did, man. I had the tiger snout.
But anyway, listen, guys, even though the programme is better without me, I am
we did hear.
Very grateful to you for taking it over, because probably by now I would have got rid of you and given you as a Christmas present to Andre.
Yeah, well, wrap me up and put a bow. What would you have done with me?
Sex. They didn't expect that.
No, we're not expecting that. No. Well, I mean, did you hear the blooper?
Can I just say that is the first time in James Wales' career that he's been surprised by it.
Yeah, but I said a bad word last night on the bloopers.
I know.
Yeah. I know. I didn't mean it. Freudian.
Did they cut it out or did they leave it in?
No, they didn't cut out it stayed in. You can see it at Virtual Ash if you have a look on Twitter.
It's only a bad word if you've got a bad mind.
Yeah, but I have, haven't I? So it was a bad word.
How is bumming ever a good word?
I said bummed.
Oh, bummed. Oh, bummed out.
Same thing. Yeah, bummed out. You've made it worse now.
You can't believe it.
No.
Sorry, I've now done a bumming.
Yeah.
Do not take my programme to that level.
So are you coming in next week, or what's going on? You're just going to get a notice? You like that? You're a woke. What do they call snowflake? You're like Generation Z.
Yeah.
Well, I can't come to work. I'm too ill to go to work.
The cancer, I think I'd be there.
Yeah. All right,
I just think it's the cancer that's probably.
Well, that makes you a bit knackered, but it's the flu that got you for the last couple of weeks, isn't it? So.
Well, sadly, and this flu is not a joke. If you get the chance to get a flu jab, I'd get it if I.
Well, apparently it was the wrong jab for the wrong flu last year. So I don't know.
Well,
who knows these vaccines?
Different flus come along, and
Yeah, you had influenza A, I found out. You know,
I did.
Because you went to hospital, so they test it and find out whatever that means.
No, I'll tell you what I want to know from you, James. So, Nigel Farage has actually been in touch with the show, and I'm not joking when I say that, to say that me and James Whale both live in Kent. I wanted to go over for a beer with him over Christmas, but unfortunately he was a little bit too ill with this flu. Right, what I want to know is, when you and Nigel Farage going for a pint together, what is that actually like? Because I would suspect that's vintage.
Well, it's like I've known Nigel 25 years, maybe 30 years. So he's an old mate. And one thing about Nigel is he is as you imagine. He's not different. He is...
Yeah, he doesn't put anything on, does he? He has a Rothmans and he likes a pint and away he goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were going to get together, but as I've spent 3 weeks flipping well in hospital, we didn't do it. He was quite busy. But, you know, I'm having to be a little bit careful about what I do. I'm not talking terribly well.
No, but you look actually very well. You look good.
Yeah, well, I spent an hour in makeup.
Ah, that's what it is, yeah. You don't really, it's just makeup.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. James. Look, the first and most important thing is this show is obviously better with you than with me. But
I meant that. It was really
But whenever you know, you're well enough to come back. We've been, you know, the viewers have been worried about you, but at the same time, we keep saying it's only the flu. And please do, first of all, make it back next week, whether that be via Zoom for a little bit or whether it's a whole show. We'd love to have you.
I'm hoping to be back next Friday. And I might say I am getting a bit better, but this thing has really knocked me for six. And, you know, it's killed quite a few people too.
Well, it tapers away very slowly, doesn't it? You think it's going, and it doesn't. It sort of takes it's a long fade out.
It's been nasty for everyone.
COVID, so yeah. Anyway, listen, guys, you're doing a great job. Thank you very much.
I think he's wrapping us up. Are you wrapping? You're wrapping us up.
And
I
I
haven't
think,
dismissed you.
I think it's probably time for me to go to bed.
Indeed.
Right, yeah, go to bed,
good
man.
night, James.
Sweet dreams.
I've got to be honest
Don't
with
let the
you.
bed bugs bite.
I've just realised a piece of unprofessionalism because it was Chuck in the gallery that said, "And if you had Ash, what would you do with him?" And then I just exclaimed the word sex.
Well, I mean, I suppose I'm flattered.
So yeah, but from the listeners and viewers' point of view, suddenly the room went dark.
What about from my point of view?
We just heard the word.
It was in my
sex
mind's eye.
Shouted.
It went in my mind's eye.
I'll tell you what Ash is going to do
I've
now.
got PTSD.
He's going to now go and poke out his mind's eye. Okay, so from the viewers and listeners' point of view, all they heard was me suddenly just go, "Ooh, sex," like Alan Partridge. Okay, well, it's great to hear from James Well. What we're going to do from now on is, if he can make it in, that's great, and we think he will. But if he can't, then we'll always get him on Zoom or get a message from him, because otherwise the viewers and listeners are going to go, "Well, who's that fat git that's taking his place?"
No, they agree. They say this is much better.
Great. Okay, let's introduce our guest co-host this evening, or one of them, who is Tom Harris from the Free Speech Union. Tom, how are you?
Doing very well, Andre.
Now, Tom, what are you doing tomorrow night? Will you be in Ridings, Derbyshire? Because if you are, then you can come to the Andre Walker and Lois Perry live stage show.
Are you in Derbyshire?
I'm not sure. No, you have to go.
I wasn't planning on being. There's a nice even song in Southwark Cathedral. I was intending
what
to
you
go
meant to say.
nice.
What you meant to say then is, Andre, how can I get tickets?
Oh my apologies. You give me the cue card. You need to give me the cue card.
So we'll try it again. We'll try it again. We'll try it again. So, Tom, what are you doing tomorrow night?
Well,
I'm going to be riding
Derbyshire.
I'm going to be riding Derbyshire.
But I haven't got anything to do.
And then I go, oh, that's a coincidence.
No Southwark Cathedral plans.
That's a coincidence, because the first night of me and Lois Perry's national tour is happening tomorrow night.
But Andre, how would one get tickets for that?
Stand up, is it?
Especially at short notice.
You can still
Is
get...
it a puppet show?
You can still get tickets. Right, stop.
Is it
everyone.
magic? And she's the assistant.
No, it's magic, Mike. Stop, everyone. Right, stop.
Pull a
stop,
rabbit out.
Stop.
Somewhere.
Yes, amazingly, there are still tickets available, which is why we're doing this bit.
How much?
Amazingly, there are still tickets available.
Where from? How do you get tickets?
They are a mere £10.
That is good value.
And we still
these
didn't
days.
bloody sell out 3 weeks' effort. Right, okay, so
What's the website?
the way you get them is to go to youtube.com. Go to Twitter, go to
I'll
x.com.
start again, edit that out.
This is live.
We should have rehearsed this.
Andre JP Walker on X. It's pinned at the top. You can buy the tickets
Nice.
there. Now, I will say
got
one
there.
thing. You know, the sales have been disappointing. No, I'm joking.
Is it just one night, or is it?
No, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to do a tour across the country, but this is our first tryout event. And actually, I think we've got 60 people coming so far, but we're keen on getting 100.
Why try it out in Derby?
Because Derby was a cheap venue. No, I'm joking. That's...
It's the centre of the country, isn't it? It's round about the centre of the country, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a good place to
Southwark's
start.
not the
north,
centre.
isn't it? It's up north.
Southwark's not the centre of the country.
No, Southwark's just outside.
What's the show about? How does it use?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that because first of all, I'm going to talk about my experiences in politics and all the history, whatever. Lois is going to talk about hers as well, and we're going to talk about why we think this country is going to be made great again. And then we're going to have
optimistic.
We're going to have a bit of an interval, and then you're going to be able to ask us questions, and it's going to be no holds barred.
Will there be nibbles? Not for £10, though.
Well, they can't nibble. No, they could nibble, Lois. I mean, it is very similar to the Alan Partridge thing, but Sue Cook's pulled out. Oh, she did with Alan Partridge.
Yeah, it does sound a bit like that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's going to be good.
He's going to
think
Evensong
it's
at
brilliant.
Southwark Cathedral.
Well,
that sounds
absolutely.
amazing and historical and that.
Yeah, well, it's a choir I sing with.
Is it a good venue? It's a good venue, isn't it?
Hang on, you sing with the choir.
I've just started to because they're singing the St John's Passion
Is that
in
because
April.
is that because you've been declared medically unfit for the swimming?
Partly.
and you're enjoying
I
it.
need something to do.
No, who was it? I think it was it Chris Hitchens who said that there are people who are great joiners of things. You're a joiner of things, aren't you?
But on very, very specific things, Andre. They're the things I get obsessed with. So obviously swimming.
So
but
first it was
also-
cocaine, then it was heroin.
Now
then
I
it was
moved on to Johann
Cocaine
Sebastian
and
Bach.
swimming, singing in a choir. Fantastic. Well, the best of
Can
all
you
of them.
do swimming? By the way, just to be clear, he is not.
Don't take drugs, anyone. It's illegal as well.
Okay, so will you swim and sing at the same time?
Well, you can, but
Because whales do.
No one can hear you.
No,
sing.
whales do. Ooh.
That's
Yeah, you might
right.
get a whale coming
And
up
you
to you.
can. I occasionally, when swimming, when I'm doing a tumble turn, you'll sort of really get into it, and you'll kind of go. Ugh.
Sorry,
and you
sorry.
can be heard by the next lane, but you can't be heard from outside the pool.
How old are you? 50.
Yeah.
And you still do the tumble turn.
Oh yeah, in a race.
But that involves your testicles flying out the window.
Do you know what? When I first met you, I said you were swimming. The reason was because I was in my local gym once, sitting in the pool because I like the steam room, and Tom Watt, Lofty from EastEnders.
Yeah.
He was swimming. He's like a fish, and you look a bit like him. And he was like unbelievably
Back and
good
forth.
swimmer, like really thin and long, like you. And yeah, it was
Oh,
amazing.
Jesus, man. What is
No, I
wrong
didn't
with...
mean your mind's in the gutter. Anyway, it's not long and thin. That it's
Right, so
short and stubby.
So I saw Lofty in the pool, and let me tell you, he was long and thin
Well,
like
I knew
you.
him anyway because he worked at Talk Sports. He had drive time for years here.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move on from all this
I
stuff.
love the non sequiturs. We're moving through.
We've had a bit of a laugh in the first couple of minutes with James Whale, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to an early break now, but I want to talk to you afterwards about this rapper, this drill star who has appeared on the BBC, and he is somebody who's murdered somebody, and he talks about literally the way this young man's blood flowed out of his body when he died. It is an absolutely disgusting story, and I'll tell you something.
And you saw the soul going out the eyes and celebrating.
Yeah, well,
Disgusting, unbelievably disgusting.
I'll tell you what I think we should do.
Lyric.
What we should do, why don't we have a little bit of a read of what this man, who, by the way, had murdered somebody, murdered a 16-year-old boy, what he was singing in the lyrics. Now, this particular song was not on the BBC, but this artist was promoted by the BBC.
And it was the Sun that actually broke the story. The BBC never even found out until the Sun told me.
Somebody who's knifed somebody to death and who is on licence for murder. Let's read this. Sharpen up my blade. I've got to keep those necessary. Stay alert and kept it ready. Any corner could be deadly. Judge took a look at me before the trial even started. He already knows he's going to throw the book at me. See a man's soul fly from his eyes and his breath gone. seeing blood spilt on the same floor he was left on. That is somebody who received 14 years in prison as a supposed life sentence and came out and became a TV and radio star courtesy of the BBC. He's back in prison. We want to hear your calls, 0344 499 1000, and we're going to be talking to Tom Harris, who is a supporter of free speech, but I think he'll have strong views nonetheless on what's taken place. More next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, do you know something? We do take calls from midnight and we don't promote it enough. 0344 499 1000. Do you know what? We've got a call now. Why don't we just go with it?
Yeah, slap it on.
Okay. So this is, I think it's Anne in Epsom. Anne, thank you so much for calling.
That's where they invented salt, isn't it?
What have you got to say?
Well, what I've got to say is people like this chap that murdered that young boy, they are literally ruling this country. They've ruined it. They've ruined this country. And so many people like myself got out of London because the state London's in with people like them.
But they've been enabled by failure of politicians and governments over the last 25 years, haven't they?
Yeah,
I mean, not taking the blame away from them, but it's been allowed. Like these rape gangs.
Yeah. I mean, people are saying about Khan, I can't stand
It's
Khan.
all in the name of diversity, isn't it?
Of course.
Yeah, I can't stand Khan, but the thing is, how is Khan going to stop it? No one is...
Well, it went down under Boris Johnson and it's gone up exponentially. At least try something and don't say to reform people, oh, no, we're not going to work with you and try anything about it.
Exactly.
But I've got this question.
That's evil, man.
I've got this question because I genuinely don't know the answer. I think a lot of people believe that there is a link between uncontrolled immigration and the explosion of antisocial behaviour and knife crime. Is that a lack of housing? Is that a lack of integration? Is that poor education? What is it about that connection which seems to exist between uncontrolled immigration and knife crime?
Well, I'd say, I honestly don't know, but I'd say 50 years ago now, when I was in London, I was young then, this is something that happened to me. I went outside, there was an ice cream van where I worked, and they'd done hot dogs, and me and a friend was there, so I'll have a hot dog. And also,
It's unusual for an ice cream van.
Not in those days.
Yeah. an hand
Especially in
reached
Scotland, you
over.
could get anything in ice cream vans in Scotland. Sorry, carry on.
We all love Duncan Bannatyne.
Yeah.
Well, an hand reached over, grabbed the money, my change. This was 3 hoodies, black hoodies. And I said, what are you doing? That's my money. And I got kicked the shite out of. Kicked me, booted
And
me.
that was, what, 30 years ago?
No, that was 50.
Well, in
Right,
that case,
okay.
doesn't
That's sort of when it began with the hoodies and all that, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Yeah. And we've got cameras and everything now, and they still can't catch them.
But this is what a lot of people are saying. And look, there is this big court case next week, which obviously we're not going to allude to because we don't want to prejudice it. But at the same time, I think there is a great feeling, or certainly there was a great feeling in Merseyside. I'm trying to say this without prejudicing the trial. There was a great feeling that. When you bring the waifs and the strays of the world, when you're the dustbin of Europe and the dustbin of the world for everybody who's got no skills and nowhere else to go, then actually it's not the fact it's the dustbin of the world that's the problem. The problem is they've got no loyalty to the community. They've got no cousins that live down the road. They've got their aunt doesn't work as a dinner lady in the local school. Therefore, it doesn't matter if you abuse the system. It doesn't. You've got no skin in the game. I mean, you know, when I grew up, you know, if you were naughty on the streets, and clearly, I mean, we weren't.
Everyone knew you
Yeah,
were
exactly
in the family.
right.
Yeah.
But it's because we had mass immigration. We had it small, you know, years ago, and people integrated because they don't need to. They form their own parallel societies. They then carry on with their cultures.
And we've actually opened all the floodgates.
We let the barbarians in, and that's how you lose. That's
Yeah,
how people,
and the thing
civilizations end. You open the door for them.
I tell you what, it's a frightening place to live now because all you've got is your little rude boys walking about with their knives and their guns and their drugs, and that is not.
Well, I
always-
will tell you the biggest mistake we made was the 2005 Police and Serious Crime Act, which was when we made it illegal for ordinary British people to set up a police force. Now, you're going to say, what? It used to be legal for private citizens. There are loads of private police forces. BTP is paid for by the rail companies. Civil nuclear police are paid for by the nuclear industry. There's Royal Parks Police are paid for. I will tell you, the Metropolitan Police have given up policing in large parts of the country. The Thames Valley Police gave up policing in Windsor years ago.
Yeah.
But the way that they're now able to do it is you can't set up a rival police
But
service.
you see parents in the States setting up their own sort of night watch, and they do sometimes work. In fact, they always work when the older parents start patrolling.
I'll tell you what caused the 2005 Police Act. The Royal Borough of Kensington Chelsea said that the Metropolitan Police have given up patrolling our streets, so we're going to create the Royal Borough of Kensington Chelsea Police Service. And that Ian Blair begged Tony Blair to make it illegal, which is what Tony Blair did. They weren't related. Okay, anyway, thank you so much, Anne. 03444991000 is the number to call if you are worried about the way that the BBC has been promoting a drill artist who murdered a 16-year-old boy who apparently, by all accounts, was a really, really lovely young man. I say that because sometimes there are gang fights and rival drug gangs and all that sort of thing. This young man had done absolutely nothing.
But should they have drill music on the BBC anyway? I mean, it is all about gangs, isn't it? I mean, why are they promoting that? Maybe they should be looking at it as a whole.
Well, we've got a young person in the studio.
Yeah, she's probably a drill fan. She loves the drill.
Okay, so Jess Gill, who's a political commentator. Last time you were Boltoner, now you're a young person. Basically, we haven't got that many contributors.
She's very malleable. You can make her into what you want.
If I'm being honest.
Yeah, next you want me to identify as like trans or something.
If you could.
Next week, that's next week.
We haven't got many of those that are sensible, if I'm being honest. No, on the serious note, you know, this show isn't about ticking boxes or diversity or anything like that. But, you know, you're at university at the moment. Now, look, at the end of the day, you're not going to end up at King's College London, which is where you're at. Yeah. At KCL, you're not going to end up spending time with drill gangs from South London, presumably. But at the same time, you know, are you worried about the way that this has an impact on young people?
Well,
this sort of
you
music?
say that, but where I'm from in Bolton, and it was a relatively nice part of Bolton as well, there was an issue.
Incorrect.
There are no nice parts of Bolton.
Yay, she did it for me.
But there are there is a massive issue of youth gangs, and it isn't just an immigration thing. These are boys who are brought up who are British, white British, and they're committing crimes. Like my friend Jake, when we were in like year 10, I think it was, he got like stabbed in the butt, and he was like bleeding out in front of a bus stop because this like year 9-year-old wanted his coat or something, and like.
And people think that's not dangerous, but there's arteries there and can kill you in a minute.
He was like almost going to die. There was a chance he was going to die. It was really serious.
People think legs. Oh, nothing's going to.
So just to be clear, I mean, in the buttock cheek.
Yeah,
I mean that's no. Well, it's not called butt in Britain. Don't have a go, gallery.
Bum cheek.
Yeah, but the problem is the bum could be the whole of the cheek. Right,
Not
so
in my
so we need to go
world.
with buttock, right? But on a deadly serious note, what do you think causes it? Because I personally think it's lack of integration into the community, and I think that can happen for two reasons. Number one, literally you're just not part of the community because you've been picked up from Afghanistan for financial reasons, or you can be somebody who's alienated by the community. I mean, look.
Well, lack of hope with the white working class there.
Exactly.
You know, used to have the mines and all that. There's
Exactly
no
right.
factories, and now what they've got, they can't afford a place. What you know, you can see.
I think it's more that we're idolising this like gang culture. Like these boys who I'm talking about, they came from okay families, like I wouldn't say middle class, but as middle class as you can get for working class. And I think the issue is, for one, an idolisation of that culture, where you idolise, you know, carrying a knife around, where you idolise dangerous activities, and also as well a lack of father figures. Like even if their parents are still together, the sentiment that I got from a lot of my male friends growing up was that their fathers weren't fully in the picture, that they were also allowing their children to go out late.
And they get away with it because the police don't stop people now. The streets are free to do what you want. And years ago, like the 60s and whatever, you couldn't get the local Bobby knew you were. You'd get caught out. You didn't get loads of people knifing everyone. It was very rare.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it did happen, but
I'll tell you, it never happened to me, but I've heard of loads of examples of people who might have had their bikes stolen in the 1970s or 80s, and they just go.
Yeah, I had my commando nicked. I remember back in the 70s.
They go to the police house and go, "Oh, Steve, blooming little Johnny's bike's been stolen." And the police officer go, "Right, no problem, get his uniform on," and the bike could be back because he knows it's ex-little tow rag that does it.
A society can be quite resilient. I mean, if you roll the clock back to the 70s or the 60s, we had dreadful crimes in those times, but there was a resilience built into our society.
There wasn't mass stabbings of kids, 14-year-olds.
Well, there was shaming of people who were doing those crimes. Now we had our Cray twins, and we had all of that stuff, all the gangsters. But there was trust built into the system, flowing round the system between the police officers, between members of the community, politicians.
But if you look at the fictional character Vito Corleone from the film The Godfather, he's similar to the Crays. So remember, if you remember the film The Godfather, Vito Corleone's principal concern is this: if you sell alcohol, if you sell gambling, and if you open up brothels, then nobody cares. If you sell heroin to teenagers, then what's going to happen is, like he says, all the police and all the politicians and all the judges will come after me. Now, remember, the reason why the Crays are sat there going, "We only kill our own," is because they don't want to outrage the community. What you're talking about with that shaming is a group of people who are so divorced from the community that they don't care. Vito Corleone, who is supposed to be one of the most senior gangsters in New York, is very worried about offending Mrs. Miggins down the street by selling heroin to her grandson, because he knows that is what will destroy his business.
And the virtual community is a thing as well. The sort of social media, TikTok reality, where actually the audience isn't the people in the community around them. The audience is actually the 100,000 or 1 million followers.
I mean, look at Mizzy, for example, which you've had first-hand experience of.
But they have more international gangs now in this country. You have Albanians, Colombia. You've got all kind of Turkish. You've got loads of different gangsters. Whereas in that day there was only
the reality is, I mean, Mizzy's a prime example. This young man called Bakari, who ends up being encouraged to jump on people, cause all sorts of trouble. I threw him out of the studio for being disrespectful, and we become mates subsequently.
What's Missy doing then?
And well, I'll tell you what he's doing is exactly what he was always going to end up doing.
A professor of medicine.
The Chinese have walked off with the ad revenue that he generated. He didn't make any money from jumping all over people.
Missy.
Right, and he spent a lot of time in prison because of it. He was completely exploited. He's now doing a course at college to be a construction worker, which I think is a noble and honest thing to do.
Aim higher, Missy.
But the reality is, what we're concerned about here is people who are so disengaged from the community. Yeah. You're right. I never thought of it like that until you said it. Shaming is the right word. You know,
it meant something.
But
it used to mean
now
it really doesn't, except within that culture. And another thing I was going to say is the way that the dressing, the intimidation. I think I saw one of these rappers being interviewed on the television earlier today, and he was wearing.
Was he wearing a suit and tie?
No, he wasn't wearing a suit.
Well, there you go.
And his shoes were scuffed.
You're going on telly, you wear a suit and not necessarily
My God, were those shoes dreadful?
Some shoes scuffed. But he was wearing a scarf and not showing his face and wearing sunglasses. And I just thought this is intimidatory behaviour in every way, even when you're reporting and defending.
Do you know? I loved it. I saw a group of young thugs being interviewed after the riots that happened. First of all, I think they started in Hackney, and then they moved to Clapham Junction, then to Manchester. And the bloke said, the bloke was on the TV, him and three of his mates with this mask over his face, and I thought, the problem is, if you'd sat through statistics in your maths GCSE, you'd have realised that mask is no use, because they went, so how old are all of you? And one of them goes, I'm 16, he's 17. The other one goes, I'm 15. And they went, you're not going to reveal your identity. And they go, no, but we live in this town. And you think, look, if you look at the statistics now, right, all we have to do is identify who is 15, 16, and 17 in this building, and there's probably only about 6 of you, and which 3 of you are mates. And I thought that is an argument for maths stats, which you support, don't you?
Always, absolutely support that.
But the shame now is not committing the crime, it's not committing a big enough crime as revenge. So you're shamed if you don't, you know.
Well, the two things occurred to me as we're talking as well. Jordan Peterson always said the first thing you should do is make your bed in the morning. That's the first chapter of his 12 years.
Well, that's me out straight away.
As if he does that.
Well, the point being that if you start the day...
What I do at the beginning of every morning is I get my servants to do it, and I sound like Kermit.
I fold my sheets. But it sounds like a trivial thing, but it's actually quite a profound point that he's making.
It's not a profound point.
Okay. The other thing...
No, sorry, why is it a profound point?
The other point I heard, which is quite similar in a way, is you know, in the car park when you give your trolley back after... Have you been to Tesco or to...
I've been to Tesco, yes.
Or Waitrose, wherever it is, and you've got 2 types of people. The first person who actually just pushes the trolley away and then drives off, and the second who
takes it back to the thing.
And people say that's a small thing, but it's not a small thing. That entirely determines how they see their place in society.
And putting your feet on the seats. If some people go, how can you put your feet on the seats? And some people go, well, it's nothing.
Why are you doing that? Why are you putting your feet on the seats?
No, hang on a second. So first of all, don't make my bed.
I'm turning into a prude.
No, don't take my bed. No, we are going to go to a break now, but I don't make my bed. I do put the trolley back because the trolley needs to be put back. And what I do, which some people complain about, but you know how there's like metal bits in between the seats on trains? I like to put my feet in those. I wouldn't put my feet on the seats of the
halfway house.
So you're trying to find a third way here.
This woman walked up to me. I'll leave you with this. I did that with my feet once, and this woman went, "Excuse me,
like she's here.
You know, there are women who need to sit on those seats."
Was it Thatcher?
No, Thatcher would have been like that. Goes,
it's actually illegal to put your feet on seats. She goes, under the bylaws of the railway. I think,
She goes, "Excuse me. But women have to sit on there after you put your feet on that." I went, "I pity the Phil that married you." And she went, "Oh!" I said, "Well, you've come over for an argument."
I'm here all week.
We'll be back in a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. This is the James Whale Show, of course, but James Whale is away. Yeah. We're hoping to get him back next week. And we've got Beanhead with us.
Instead, as a, you know...
Right, and so Tom Harris...
Well, it's obvious. Look,
there is Tom Harris. No, we've got a man from the Monstrous Loony.
It's Simon Dunshuk from a couple of weeks ago. No,
it could basically be anyone.
It's Simon... No, it's not. OK, so look, we're just going to explain to people who are listening that Beanhead is called Barmy Brunch. You are a bit of a political scientist, but also a Monstrous Loony Party candidate. Where did you run previously?
So, North East Somerset and Hanham against Jacob Rees-Mogg.
And did you win?
I didn't.
No, how many votes did you get?
211.
That's not bad.
I'm now a minister, by the way. I was in the news on this channel, so it's a great honour to...
By the way,
have you got a new mask? Because it looks much better quality. The tomato.
I've washed it.
Yeah, the tomato. Look, it's brilliant.
It looks like it's got
bacon. It's tomato.
It's got a skull cap now.
That's your eyebrows.
Can I tell you my worst performance in a public election?
Yes.
When I ran for Portsoken on City Council in the City of London for the corporation, I received 11 votes.
Oh.
And I was a serious candidate. It cost me £1,000. Yeah, it's
almost, you've done better than that.
I almost got as few votes per 1,000 as James Goldsmith did with the referendum party. But the difference between me, I wasn't the actual Larry Wildman from the film Wall Street. But anyway, right, Beanhead, what have you got for us?
Couple of things. Pizza scandal. Forget the brunch. Have you heard about this? There's a Norwich restaurant that wants to charge £100 for a pineapple pizza.
As a sort of tax to put you off it, isn't
exactly.
it? I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I hate that. I mean, and if people who have that, I'm suspicious of.
Yeah, I mean, I've never fancied pineapple on a pizza. Have you ever gone for no?
They'd have to pay me £100.
I used to think that about cheese and cake. I used to say that. And then, what's his name? Nicked it.
No, I think you've got to explain why Peter Kay stole your joke.
A lot of comedians listened to our show years ago, and he started using that as a joke, and then he went into garlic bread, which doesn't work as a joke. It shows he doesn't get it.
So just to be clear, cheese and cake is sweet and savoury, or savoury and sweet.
Work, yeah.
But then when he went garlic bread, well, sorry, they're both savoury. What are you talking about?
No, everyone likes garlic bread. Garlic bread.
Could we do another one about pineapple pizza? Is that what they're...
Well, you could have started off the joke with pineapple, but cheese and kick. Cheese and kick! See, it sounds better, especially in a northern accent.
In a Bolton accent.
Yeah.
So what is your principal objection to pineapple pizza?
But you're a southerner. A lot of southerners like pineapple pizza.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it taking off in some areas, but no, it's not for me. And I'm firmly on their side. So
just to be clear, so obviously they've put the price up to £100 because they want to discourage people from purchasing it. What will happen to the superfluous funds? Will they just pocket
That's
them?
a really good point. I mean, the owner stated that he just doesn't like pineapple pizza.
It's an arrestable offence in Italy.
Is it?
Yeah, they actually put you in jail for that. Yeah.
I'll tell you something. I often go to Pizza Express and I normally get the American hot with jalapenos. Then I like
Isn't
to put...
that a chance on Strictly
I like to put chili flakes, chili oil and Parmesan on it. And I will say, the reason I do that, amongst other things, is because normally,
it's delicious.
Bread and cheese, it hangs in your gut, doesn't it? But with all that chili, comes straight out the day after.
Yeah, but you get a burning ring of fire.
Well, you do, yeah. It's an ankle gripper.
In the morning.
You're going like that, going, ooh.
Well, what would the pineapple do? That's the thing.
But that would also, it's fibrous.
Okay.
Right, it's fibre. It would assist.
It's a great fibre provider. Also, pineapple isn't good if you take certain ED pills.
What ED? What's
erectile dysfunction. So.
Oh well, Asher.
I read it once. No, I'm preparing. I'm preparing for the future. We've got to talk about these things openly, man.
Asher has bought some erectile dysfunction pills. And
Can't have pineapple again.
It's fair to say, Beanhead, he likes you. Oh God, put your eye out with that.
Even with the mask on. You can leave your mask on. You do look a bit like the Gimp from Pulp Fiction, but a sort of English breakfast version.
That's what's doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, pineapple pizza.
Beanhead, what does your mum think?
She's not watching. She's asleep.
Does she know it's you?
That's cottage pie. His mum. She's got a cottage pie head.
No, but does she not go? Does she not go, look, Mike, your breakfast show's brilliant, but this bean thing is just...
He's a doctor in real life, a very serious surgeon.
She's just saying, look, Patrick, just stick on GB News. You shouldn't be doing this to yourself. She's going like this. She's going, hey, Patrick, I don't think you should be doing that, right? It's even though you get a 10 off for it, right? Just stick
His mum's
to
not
GB.
Liam Gallagher.
Just to be clear, Beanhead is neither Mike Graham nor Patrick Christie's, right?
No. You say.
In fact, actually, you're the ENTS officer for Warwick Student Union. Do you remember that on Partridge?
No, what's that one?
Bald Brummies.
Oh yeah,
you're not
bald Brummies.
You're
not all in the audience.
You're not a bald Brummie. You're the ENTS officer for Warwick Student Union, aren't you? Is your mum proud of you? Yes. Bald Brummies.
Right, next story.
Next story. Where are you heading on holiday? Because Ryanair is saying that there's now a 2-drink limit.
What?
On flights. No more drinking to excess.
2 buckets? I mean,
we're talking those small little airport drinks.
Right, can I tell you...
Sneak the duty frees in though, don't they?
They do.
Can I tell you, my best mate is from Moldova. Right, and unfortunately he has disgraced himself over the past couple of days. He was supposed to be flying in from Moldova to the UK, but he booked onto Wizz Air and the executive lounge. Right, how does that work? Right, so basically the worst airline possible,
yes,
along with the executive lounge.
It's like the pineapple pizza.
You get a Big Mac in there,
just save on the flight, pay for the lounge, right? So anyway, it's fair to say in Chisinau, Moldova, the drinks are fairly cheap. So he consumed a bottle of champagne in the lounge, then had 2 double vodka and pineapples on the flight to Vienna, which is only an hour, right? And then in the first-class lounge in Vienna, consumed a second bottle of champagne, slept in the lounge, and woke up an hour after his flight had taken off to London, right? And then had to stay in a hotel.
Which you probably paid for.
Which I did pay for, yeah. £135.
Well, he got his money's worth with the hotel lounge.
So, Beena, do you like getting drunk on a flight and getting a bit aggressive?
Well, I was a bit disappointed. 2-drink limit. I understand with driving, you're not driving the aeroplane. You're sitting in the
Jess, do you get drunk on flights?
Jess, I'm going to tell you this. I do something that I call the Executive Lounge Challenge whenever I fly. How much vodka can you drink in the hour before takeoff and still be allowed on the plane? But I've got the best story ever about it. Right, how am I going to say this? I was close to a very, very senior member of the Trump administration. I won't say which one it was. We all know which one it was. But anyway, he's an Irishman. And he said that when he worked for it's Steve Bannon, everyone knows it's Steve Bannon, right? Yeah. But when he worked for Goldman Sachs, he said that he got into the airport lounge to go to his daughter's 7th birthday, and he was drinking in there heavily, and he missed the first flight.
As you do at your daughter's 7th birthday?
No, he was in the lounge flying back to his daughter's 7th birthday. But okay, so he's drinking heavily. And then the next thing that happens is he realises he missed his first flight. But they're every hour, and it's only an hour flight, so he missed the first one. Then the second one. Then the third one. First class ticket, you can go on any you want. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter then.
He misses a total of 5 flights. Because he's absolutely languid. Right?
Jess, you get more drunk than 30,000 feet.
Then he said he flew back. He arrived at 11 o'clock at night at his house, and had 4 further cans of lager. He woke up on the sofa. The party was at 5 o'clock. He was there at midnight.
And he'd flown back, actually.
And there was a little note on his chest saying, I want a divorce. Of all the days on the lash you've ever been.
And that was from the 7-year-old daughter.
So I want to ask you, do you get drunk on flights?
No, I'm the most boring young person ever.
Are you really? That's a surprise.
Very sensible.
Although what me and Anna McGovern do, when we go to Toby Carvery, we take advantage of the unlimited refills and we sneak like vodka underneath the table.
Oh, we all do that.
Yeah, so
does that.
That's a classic.
I'll tell you what they used to do in Nando's. They used to have only 1 glass for both the water and the soft drinks. So everyone used to go, I'll just have water, please. And then just help
schoolboy era.
I'll tell you what I like. I like that cinema where they've got like that where you can pay £2 extra and get like the separate seats. And then you can bring vodka in there.
I've never heard of that.
The problem is you need a slash, don't you?
I've never heard of that, no.
OK, let's go to a break, and then we're going to be talking further about how Jess Gill gets drunk at various occasions.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
By the time I got to the station.
Right, don't tell them those stories.
No, I won't, yeah.
Right, so the station was...
New Street Station.
Asher Gould has been dragged to a
New
series
Street
of
Station.
rail stations in his life where he's had to stay overnight.
Yeah. No, never overnight. They don't want to give you breakfast. But anyway.
Right, it's a train station, Asher.
Yeah, no, I know.
Train station.
Yeah, he slept in New Street as well.
Do you know what makes me laugh about those idiots?
Now Grand Central, they bastardised the name. It's New Street Station in Birmingham. Yeah, it's called Grand Central now.
I'll tell you what upsets me. In the gallery, they're going, "Oh, I'm surprised that you didn't get your breakfast. I used to sleep at New Street Station." He's not talking about rail stations, right? Can we just
It's
move
a monstrous carbuncle, is Grand Central, with it's a big silver crown.
Nobody cares about the rail
John
station.
Lewis left. It was that bad. John Lewis went, and what's his name? Street was the mayor, wasn't he?
We're only talking about train stations because we don't want to talk about police stations.
No.
Right, can we just be clear on that? Right, so I'll tell you what's happening to me tonight. First of all, I'm tired. Secondly, I've got Asher talking about blooming arrest this and breakfast in police stations that, and can you smoke a fag in a cell? Don't know, Asher.
You can't.
We've got Ellie. Sorry, we've not got Ellie, we've got Jess Gill. Right, I'm getting confused now. We've got Jess Gill. She's going on about not drinking on planes, which is communism, and a man dressed as a bean. Right, I mean,
who's the most sensible person here? Is it?
That's what we've got. That's what we've got.
Monster raving loony party.
By the way, Beanhead, you've ironed your shirt beautifully.
I know. I was looking at this. Is the one I wore to work. I'm thinking I'm a teacher full time, and
what
this is
a secondary school teacher?
Secondary school.
And do they know about your alter ego?
Don't. That's the beauty of this.
But some have sometimes guessed.
They've sort of rumbled in that direction, but I just sort of.
I bet you're a cool.
My shirt,
I bet you're a cool
distraction.
You're a cool teacher, though. Do you teach like biology?
Psychology.
I knew it would be an ology.
The problem is, before you came in, we were talking about statistics, right? So what you've now done is you've now said who turns up with blue rumpled shirts, who teaches psychology, who sounds like you, right? This, who could make it into London later?
Why do they teach psychology at schools? No wonder everything's gone mad. They never did that in my day. It's not.
You got to understand how humans think. This is the thing.
No, you don't. No, you don't. All right. What's your assessment of me?
I would say
sociopath.
What do you think?
No, just first word that came into my mind.
Do you think I'm a narcissistic?
Oh, no doubt about that.
What?
I'm just going to sit back, because that's what most psychologists do. They just sit back and let you talk.
I think most presenters are narcissists, aren't they? It's just a natural thing.
No.
I mean, is James Wales? No.
Well, all he's done is laughed. That's not worth 100 quid an hour.
But that's the thing. That's what therapists can do.
No, it's good. It makes us feel better.
Yeah, okay. I'll tell you a great therapist story. I've got a friend of mine who's a therapist, kind of to the stars. I know her socially, right, not professionally. I'm not a star. But anyway, she's not allowed to do this, but she did mention to a friend of mine, she went, I've got this real nutter that comes to me. And she came in and she said, look, I found this bloke on Tinder. He's a lawyer, he's great. And it was one of her mates. So she said, I won't give you the full details, but anyone who messages you on Tinder this week, my advice is she's one of the really nuts ones. There's some that are okay, but she's really
We had a guy, Professor Kevin Dutton, who's like a professor of, I think, psychology at Cambridge. And I once opened the door to him. He'd never met me before, and he looked in my eyes and he went, you're a socio or psychopath. And then he'd had a couple of drinks and he said, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It's like my professional, but he's a bloody good bloke, actually. But he used to hang out with, like, Howard Marks and Andy McNabb and that. He used to meet loads of other stuff.
Yeah, I loved that great, was it Brass Eye, where they had Andy McNabb on it and they just turned up the light so you could just see his face. Yeah. And it was just some nondescript bloke, Andy McNabb.
Yeah. It's not his real name, anyways.
Okay, so Beanhead.
Yeah.
What other stories have you got?
Cancel.
Is his name Terry Buxton?
Yeah. Oh no, I've given it away. Sorry.
Cancel culture. Talking about pubs and things and drinking. Well, there's this talk that you can't talk about certain topics.
Not really.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I do know his real name now, but I won't say because they'll kill me. Sorry, Karen.
you shouldn't talk about certain topics in front of pub staff at the risk of being banned. That's what they're saying. One of them being trans rights and a couple of other things. Yeah. So that's the main story from the pubs.
I know, and this is all very... Do you remember they tried to ban smoking, but they're trying to destroy pubs because that's where, you know, people talk, and especially the working class go and meet to talk and sort things that are trying to ban. What do you think, Jess, about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the more drunk I get, the more politically incorrect I get, so I don't think this would be very good for me. But you're absolutely right, it is an attack on the working class, especially the British working class, and just anyone. I think a lot of people go to pubs. It's the only place where they have community nowadays.
Well, that's why they're going for it.
And Stammer's attacking it. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see this as part of the deconstructing of the infrastructure of the indigenous population? Because if you think about
destruction of the country,
and so I was talking about my mate who's Ukrainian. You know, his view is very clear. If you want to ethnically cleanse people, and in Eastern Europe that's happened on many occasions, if you want to do that, pull down the statues, get them off TV, ban their history, make sure that scholarships at university go to the new people, flood in with new immigration, housing priority goes to new migrants, language, you start printing things in multiple languages.
Take the children away from families and just mind control them. I mean, it's the communist playbook, isn't it?
And then basically encourage the construction of their infrastructure and the deconstruction of the indigenous infrastructure. Yeah. Now, and also, and I'm going to say this, make sure on the television that their people are not seen, and it's the new people that see. Now, I am not a far-right conspiracy theorist, and I'll tell you why I'm not, because I don't believe that this is being done deliberately, but you cannot get away from the fact that all the things I've just listed are happening.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have no disagreement with that. I mean, bringing it back to pubs, for example, it is one of the few places where it is mostly just white people, the indigenous population. Like I've told you before, I live in Tottenham, which is very, very multicultural. But I don't know how. Maybe it's like their spawning point or something. But all the white people just seem to like come from the pubs. Like they're all in the pubs.
Yeah. But if you turn as an example a pub into a mosque, then what you've done is you've denigrated the infrastructure of the white community and improved the infrastructure of the Muslim community. Now that may be a good or a bad thing, but it is simply a fact. I think if you were to put a rule in that say banned mosques, and actually there has been a problem with that because now you have to call them prayer rooms because of the parking on Fridays. But look, people will react. But the destruction of our infrastructure is happening. I've always said Sadiq Khan is a patriot to this country as an example, but he sees it as a country where it's a virgin territory where a multicultural society can be built. He doesn't.
But some people are trying to build a monoculture, but someone else's culture.
Well, no. Look. If you look at a lot of these people, and Jess, I invite you to comment on this. If you look at a lot of these people, they would see it in the same way as the first people that arrived in the United States of America, to say this is a new place, we can make it our home, but not particularly interested in what happened before.
Yeah, they don't integrate. You look at so many places in London, and it does not feel like London anymore. And I think, again, with the pubs, they are very British. They're a staple of British culture and British history.
Is that why they're the enemy of Keir Starmer?
I would say so. Yeah. Think about the tax, think about the regulations, think about just the general disdain towards the people who go there.
Yes.
Honestly, there's no more taxes.
Do you remember when John Cleese about 10 years ago said London's doesn't feel English anymore? And everyone went mad, you were racist and big. Now you say that and everyone goes, oh yeah, of course. And then it's just then they were trying to shut it all down, you know, even back then.
And it was easier to hide
but I'll tell you something, Bean Ed, right? One thing that I find amazing is when you're literally being told you're wrong, I remember in Lee in Lancashire, which had at one point more teenage pregnant mums than it did have ethnic minorities, and suddenly that big influx of ethnic minorities, influx of immigration happened in the 90s, and Andy Burnham was going, it's not happening. Well, I mean, there weren't many bloody burqas before then, right? And literally, you can see all these people walking down the street and they go, you're not seeing this happening.
That's how lying works,
that's
isn't
what
it? It gradually changes.
That's what insults everyone's intelligence.
In 30 seconds, please, Beanhead, your answer.
It's a tough job. Well, I will say this. Driving down the street, you don't see many people looking like me anymore.
What looking like the Burns unit?
We don't actually see. We don't know what it looks like.
Depends which area you're driving.
So you don't see people who look like me me anymore. You're a man with a bean mask on your face.
There used to be loads of people like him around, don't you remember back
This
in the
is it.
70s? Yeah, Slade.
Are you concerned about racism towards the beanhead community? Don't answer that.
Yeah.
I mean, why we'd even
You'll
do
have
that?
to take those bacon rashers off in a few years.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But the guy on your team are not keen on them.
I
either.
don't mind, you know. I don't eat it. Use
Okay,
a fork, but I never eat pork.
Okay, Barmy Brunch, thank you so much. He's not
you.
really called Beanhead.
I prefer bean here.
So do I. Okay, we're going to be up with the press preview straight after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is the press preview with Andre Walker and Asher Gould, and we've also got our guest co-hosts this evening, who are Tom Harris and Jess Gill, who I was calling Ella earlier. Ella.
Ella Gill, sounds good.
Okay, so Asher, what's the first page?
This is the Daily Mail, and apart from Jamie Oliver's easy air fryer recipes, we've got this world exclusive, and it's the Führer was heavily, he's an angel. They found after 80 years the secret diary of Hitler's English girlfriend, and this is Unity Mitford. I think she had a sister who was sort of a lover of a communist with Stalin, or, you know, they were two sisters sort of picked sides. But anyway, this is the story: the long lost secret diaries of Hitler. Well, have they been checked? We've heard that before.
Yes.
Hitler's English girlfriend are unveiled by the Daily Mail today in a world publishing coup. Aristocrat Unity Mitford's leather-bound journal reveals fresh insights into the most evil man in history. Well, there is competition for it. Whom she worshipped was simply wonderful. A lot of the aristocrats in this country sort of there was footage of like the Queen Mother and some of them doing the Nazi salute. It was all very popular. The England team went out and did it notoriously, and even Aston Villa did. And they put the Nazi flag on the Tottenham Hotspur ground when they were over here.
I think a lot of this is very much overplayed. So I'm going to say a couple of things and allow Tom and Jess to respond. First of all, ultimately, I remember a friend of mine who was in the police saying, "Oh, they're all lovable rogues down the pub." Right? At the end of the day, nobody is hated by everyone other than Tom Newton-Dunn. But apart from that, he's the only man I've never heard anything good said about. But actually, the reality is, the fact that a Nazi killer was nice to his children, in a sense, doesn't prove anything at all.
And a vegetarian.
It doesn't demonstrate anything. The other thing about all of this is I'm going to strongly disagree with Asher. The reality is there was a sense in the United Kingdom that Germany had been hard done by, and it was dangerous for the economy of Europe, the Treaty of Versailles. And they weren't necessarily pro-Hitler, they were pro Germany getting back on its feet. And the other
they didn't know he was a murderer back then, so you could sort of... The Olympics were in 36, they were all out there.
The other thing that's really important to bear in mind is precisely what Asher says, which is this. You know, the Holocaust really started in 1941. So lots of countries were anti-Semitic, and it's fair to say that the Brits were not keen. They
still are.
Were not keen on the restrictions that were put on Jewish people. But you have to remember the rounding up, the ghettos. I mean, the gassing really was 1943. And you hear kids now going, why did we go to war with Germany? Well, because of the Holocaust. Well, no. We went to war with Germany because we were generically concerned about Germany building an empire in Europe.
Well, and invading us and taking over, which did nearly happen. But the Battle of Britain stopped it.
I even disagree with that.
Well, Churchill saw what he was doing.
I even disagree with that. I don't think there was any prospect of Hitler invading Britain had we done a peace deal early on, because we were white people ruling black people across the world. That was way up his street, right?
But we would have let him stop at the Sudetenland. No. I mean, we would have let him stop at Czechoslovakia.
Yes.
It was...
The reality is, it was once again, and people forget nowadays, they went, I mean, when we were all at school, perhaps Jess slightly different, but when we were all at school, you go, well, why would you go to war over Belgium? Well, hang on, we're willing to go to war over Ukraine, right? The violation of a sovereign country is considered a bad thing. The violation of Poland was something that we considered intolerable.
But another thing people forget, it was Chamberlain that actually said, if Hitler does this, we go to war. It was Chamberlain that did declare war, and they just had the First World War. And so he's not really a coward. He did declare war, but he wasn't really a wartime leader. But when you look at the President Obama, if you cross that red line, he's an appeaser. He was a weak man, and he's why the world's left in this situation like it is. Obama was worse than what Chamberlain did declare war.
Chamberlain as everyone knows, desperately wanted to do a deal with Hitler and thought he had.
Because they had a terrible war about 30
years. This is peace in our time.
This is peace in our time, and he wanted to go in as the hero.
But I'll tell you something, Tom. This is the bit that people forget about the 1930s. I mean, it wasn't just the number of people killed that affected every village, right? Every village, forget every town, but also people with hideous disfigurements.
Yes.
You know, I was watching a.
I remember blokes with one leg who'd been in the wars.
We're still living with the scars of the First World War. The First World War was.
Yeah, but you actually saw the people, didn't you? When we were kids, you saw old men with one leg.
That's
you saw it quite a lot.
Yeah, the odd great-grandfather.
I'll tell you the worst.
I'll
tell you the worst thing about the First World War, which I've got a friend of mine who advances this theory. See what you think, Jess. He basically says the First World War destroyed this country because a lot of the top people from all the good schools, from all the top universities, were all second lieutenants. The survival rate amongst second lieutenants, because they led the men into battle with that handgun, was appalling. What was left was the dross. And he said, and I'm sorry to say this, he feels that we're the dross, because the bravest, the most intelligent, the most able young people in the country were machine gunned. Yeah. And it is fair to say, if you look at the quality of people in Parliament, when you look at it before the First World War and you look at it after, the quality, I mean, the dribbling idiots that I meet who are members of the House of Commons now are nothing.
Well, the upper classes proportionately lost more than the working class, and a lot of it was they lost their big stately homes because someone was killed and they had to pay, and then the brother was killed, so they had to pay inheritance tax, and there was nothing left.
Well, my old school, they used to have pictures of all the kids that had left school, and I think, 1914, there was only one left.
It ruined the fabric of the country, really, and led to the Second World War, which totally destroyed our, the empire and everything.
No, absolutely.
Anyway, Jess, are you one of the dross that was left behind by the First World War?
Was that the question?
That was the question. Come on. Answer it with aplomb, I think.
I don't know. Hopefully not.
But on a serious note, I worry a little bit about history, and I'll tell you why. I went to the Belzec death camp in Poland, which is not the famous one, because you've got to remember there are 3 Holocausts. There's the machine gunning terrified people in the woods is one Holocaust. Then there's the labour camp and the gassings. And then there's Operation Reinhardt, which is Sobibor, Treblinka and Belzec.
More were killed in the machine gunning than the gas chambers.
So the Sobibor, Treblinka and Belzec, there's no selection. If you arrive there, you are going to die.
They were just murder camps.
That's it. Yeah. What amazed me was how mundane it was. I mean, it was just a railway line and an old blown-up building. And I just think what people forget about Nazism, what people forget about the Holocaust, is it was fundamentally that there's nothing there. You know, you can't sit there and say all of these people were evil. Do you know what happened? They were told to gas Jews and machine gun them in the streets, and that's what they did.
That's pretty evil, I think, in my view.
And it's an astonishing thought, because what we like to think is there's a category of people who are evil who would do this, and then there's us nice people. The Germans all knew.
Well, we see it now, don't we, with the anti-Semitism marches and all that. You know, it's basically a numbers game. 80% of probably people are, and there's a good 20%.
We all think we're the person who would not have followed.
Exactly right.
And we're probably not.
I don't know.
It's never took off here with Oswald Mosley. It never took off, did it? It might do now. Sorry, Jess.
Well, I was going to say, I think actually, not to my own horn, but I think we would be the people to stand out for it, because currently, obviously, it's not as bad as the Nazis, obviously not. But there are people who believe, or at least have convinced themselves to believe, that there are a million genders. And I think people are so subject to propaganda that they're the people who would go along with it.
Yeah,
well, you can see this country's.
I mean, I'll
I'll
tell you something else, Jess. And this is a genuine, serious question when it comes to Hitler and the Nazis. I think that part of the reason that Britain feels the way that it feels about the anti-Semitism that happens now, there's always been Jew hating across Europe, but I think actually there is a sense in Britain. I feel it. I don't know if you, Jess, do, but where we go, we got it right with Hitler, and actually we're going to get it right this time with Hamas. And I think there are people who sit back in their own homes, not the people that you see out in London, who go, you know what, we're not going to tolerate these marches, we're not going to give succour to the Jeremy Corbyn people, because we were asked this question once before and we ended up on the right side of it. Is that a fair comment?
I actually don't know about that, because my generation, like when I go to university and I talk to the lecturers and the people in the class, they don't seem to have any pride over the accomplishments of winning the war.
Really?
Instead, we don't talk about the Second World War in politics, but we talk about the Cold War. And all of a sudden it's like Western imperialism, the West is awful, they're the ones who are causing all the issues.
Well, we don't have fair play.
Yeah,
Part of our culture, British culture, is fair play, that's sort of gone, hasn't it, because of all the mixture of everybody and a lot of more hatred.
But can I ask you this? Does it then follow that something that happened that we saw, that me, Tom and Asher would be shocked by, when they sort of go, well, Hitler was quite bad, but to be fair, Churchill was a racist as well. That, to your generation, does that make it? I appreciate not you individually, but to your generation, does that make any sense?
Well, I think a lot of young people nowadays compare us to Nazi Germany in terms of levels. Like, you never talk about the greatness of Churchill nowadays.
Yes.
And I admit, like, Churchill has his flaws, especially in terms of domestic policy. Like, they called him a socialist back in the day. The Conservatives.
Well, I don't think that was the principal criticism.
Yeah, that wasn't.
Well, he switched 3 times, didn't he, Churchill?
Yeah, but in terms of the war, absolutely, I think he's a good guy.
But Jess, in fairness, right, first of all, I tell you what I hate about this whole thing with Churchill. First of all, every old person I knew when I grew up was a bit racist. By the way, I suspect that's true of Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Africa as well, where they like their own kind and they're a bit like my grandmother. I wouldn't eat that foreign food. But at the same time, Churchill made some comments that were racist by our standards, though part of it's linguistic change. But the central allegation against him, he caused the Bengal famine. Bangladesh was being blockaded by Japan. Yeah. The entire British merchant navy would have been sunk before it ever got there.
The problem is that we've redefined all of these concepts. So racism
to fit the narrative.
I don't know which comes first. I mean, racism was clearly defined most by Martin Luther King Jr., which is that the opposite of racism is us all walking down the street together.
Identity politics. Yeah.
We've now redefined it into this anti-racism nonsense and this identity politics, which is then capturing the next generation and the generation afterwards, who genuinely believe
but
that,
nowadays
that we are the baddies.
He didn't believe that, Churchill, though. He
II.
believed that Indians were just as intelligent, they just weren't as advanced in the thing, but he also thought that about the working class. He thought we, the upper class, have got to look after
Yeah, it
them.
wasn't
Because in
hateful.
Eton and Harrow and all that, they were bred to be, and they thought they were paternal. They had to look
We
after
understood
everyone.
human dignity. Though.
when-
Everyone was shocked when they opened up the camps in World War II.
Yeah.
Everyone on the Allied sides opened, and even the locals in
Well,
Germany.
How bad it was,
It
yeah.
was exactly. I'll tell you. Part of the reason they didn't bomb Auschwitz was they flew over and they basically said, "Well, there's no way they're doing this. IG Farben wouldn't get up to it." But
It must be an error.
Well, they didn't even rescue Jersey, because obviously at the time of the war you had to just concentrate to win to stop Britain, and then so even the Jersey people got murdered.
Just one final point on this, and I know everyone's going mad in the gallery because we keep talking about.
There was a concentration camp in this country, by the way, on the islands in not Jersey. That's.
But when I was a kid, the most important political issue was not race. It is now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say it's an extension of immigration.
Yeah, it was. What's the island called by Jersey where they had the concentration?
Guernsey.
No, not Guernsey.
Sark.
Begins with A. Anyway,
We were
I'll
very
look it up
happy in
later.
the 1990s.
And there's actually
We've been
pits of it.
re-racialised.
They try and hide it. There's pits
Yeah,
in this country.
it's amazing actually. I personally believe that the left used to think that they could divide Britain up on class, and I don't think they can do it. If you look at Nigel Farage, upper class,
Alderney, yeah.
upper class bloke who appeals to the British working class, I think they believe now that the way to destroy Britain is by racial division. Race is the number one issue. But here's the thing that upsets me more than anything else. We'll move on now. But one thing that upsets me now, there is now a racial struggle in this country, and we have to stand up for white people in the same way as they're saying, right, there has to be if there's going to have
crazy,
to
isn't it?
if there's going to have to be black scholarships, there's going to have to be white scholarships.
Well, this is why in Westminster Council they haven't said ethnic minority. They've said because now white people are an ethnic minority in Westminster.
They've said global majority.
So you can only apply for exactly.
Asha, don't go to the FT. Let's go to the break, and then we'll come
Good
back
idea.
to the FT.
Yeah. Take.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We're back. It's the newspaper review. It's Andre and Ash. We've got Jess and Tom here, and we're going through the papers for tomorrow. The FT weekend. It's £3.50. That's the most important.
Yeah, so
thing,
we're going to read it, so you don't have to.
Starmer touts Trump relationship is U-turning. They're all bottling it, aren't they? Now Trump's coming back, and they realise they better do something. PM's faith in constructive bond. Focus on winning trade deal. Well, he's not going to be very happy because he sent 100 people to try and not get him voted in, and David Lammy's called him a neo-Nazi, didn't he?
The problem is with all of this, Asher, as far as I can see, Donald Trump is too sophisticated for the Keir Starmer proposition. Donald Trump believes that part of the solution to America's problems is to have a strong Anglosphere, and that is to smash Britain's EU membership, to smash the Labour Party and to smash the Conservative Party, to keep Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland in the United Kingdom. Everything that Starmer wants, everything that Lammy wants, Donald Trump believes it is in America's interest. It is a matter of America's national security for that fat wanker Lammy to lose.
Well, the Chagos Islands is the most obvious example, isn't it?
They leaked that, didn't they?
Who leaked it?
So that whole story that Lammy will sign the deal in the days before Trump comes in, the American embassy blatantly leaked that.
I can't keep up with the way politics works. Is that you leak the thing you don't want to happen, so that then doesn't happen.
But at the end of the day, I mean, look, you can go to my YouTube channel, Andre Walker, right? And I explain why I believe that the Chagos Islands deal will cause a third world war. Because what they're stopping...
But it won't happen, will it?
What they're stopping China doing is sailing oil from the Middle East to China in order to power an invasion of Taiwan. Fact.
But it's just another example of our Prime Minister seeming to put British interests last.
Yes.
It's weird.
Well, we know he does that now, don't we?
But I know we know it, and I know we're seeing it. I just find it
like
the weirdest
why are we allowing it to happen?
Why would you do it?
But Starmer believes
Davos over Westminster.
Starmer believes that international law is the most important thing. Britain is merely a province of an international law settlement. They're giving the Chagos Islands back, not because they're stupid, not because they think it's a good deal, but because it's a first step towards all of us complying with international law. And they see it as a benefit. But here's the big problem. After the Second World War, sorry to go back to it, but after the Second World War, the United Nations was created. And what was the benefit of the United Nations? That countries across the world talk to each other. What's the disbenefit? Most countries around the world have leaders who are savages.
You should never be the first person to do something. You should always be the one selling the pickaxes to the people who are going up the mountain. Sell the equipment for the people.
Exactly.
But if you're the first person, we're not going to get followed by America.
It's patronising, isn't it? It's like our green policies. We'll lead the way.
We'll lead the way with international law. We'll lead the way with
which doesn't really exist. International courts don't actually. They exist, but you can just ignore them. It's not binding. It's
no one's going to follow.
You're sovereign country. Why should you?
No one's going to follow.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, the amazing thing about the Chagos Islands deal, we want to decolonise. Right, so first of all...
We're back to decolonisation, of course.
Mauritius has never ruled the Chagos Islands as an independent country, and the people of the Chagos Islands don't agree with the deal.
Apparently they all live in...
I don't think they're even talked to.
They apparently all live in Croydon now.
They do live in Croydon. Yeah. They do live in Croydon. Yeah, there were 900.
Let's give Croydon to Mauritius.
Well, there were 900 people.
Oh, now you're talking.
Yeah.
There were 900 people living in
Croydon.
There were 900 people living in the Chagos Islands, and when they were deported, they had a choice. They could either go to Croydon or Mauritius, and they went to Croydon.
They must have been really bad in the Chagos Islands.
Croydon.
A bit Croydon.
It's fair to say that they were. How do I say this politely? They were some of the first ones that arrived in Croydon. It was all right in those
very
days.
Good transport.
It had the airport, didn't it?
Have you been there?
That's probably why they stayed there, because the airport was there. A lot of the East End is because the docks were there, and immigrants just first.
But here's the amazing thing about Lammy, the stupidity of. I think that Starmer is a wrong 'un. I think Lammy's a moron. But people can disagree with me. Here's the thing about Lammy. Lammy is saying, let's decolonise. Why? Hand it to China. Oh, because the decolonisation in Africa went so well until the Chinese arrived.
Yeah. Like his appearance on Mastermind.
The people of the Chagos Islands do not want this deal, right?
Well, they're getting it.
I'll tell you what they want. I'll tell you what they actually want. What they actually want is this. The 900 of them want to be flown back from Croydon, which is near Gatwick Airport, so it's convenient. They want to be flown back. They want to do a deal with the Americans directly. They want to receive the $9 billion between 900 of them. Fantastic. And why wouldn't they want that?
Lottery,
right?
winning a lottery.
But to suggest that what they want is for their home territory to be handed to a vassal state of China, and for the country that's a vassal state of China to be given $9 billion for it,
and for them to stay in Croydon. They don't want. Anyway, the next story is a sort of a link to this, just quickly. It's about Trump, China, and TikTok. Apparently, the US are going to ban TikTok. Tom, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know what it is. But
Not anymore.
I have read
and we
about
definitely
it.
ask you, just as a young person and a
I have
TikToker
read
person.
about it. I mean, I've heard that from a free speech perspective, banning ways of communicating doesn't seem right. But my understanding is that it's also being used.
Because they pump crap into the West TikTok and China to their own educational stuff to theirs. So it's dumbing down our population. I mean, what do you think? You're always on TikTok.
Yeah, I used to actually be quite prominent on TikTok. I grew an audience of like 50,000 followers just making conservative posts. And originally there was a community of conservative young commentators just posting funny videos. And one by one, each of us got banned because they were so against any
what
right-wing
time was
free
this?
speech.
2022 or something?
I got banned
COVID time?
last year, but it was the height of COVID that the Tory talk, as we called it, TikTok pages, they rose to prominence. But now you just go on the app and it's just leftism after leftism after leftism, and then you wonder why young people nowadays are so radicalised. I mean, speaking of the Chagas Islands, I was in my politics class today, and one of the people, no one puts their hands up in politics, but the one guy who did, we were talking about security.
Did you laugh at him?
I hate him, the one guy.
Thinks he's at school.
Honestly, terrible. But we were talking about security dilemmas, and as an example, he used the Chagas Islands, giving it back to the people. Like you said, what people?
What an idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no one there.
Did someone make that point, or is it too politically correct and no one could say, look, mate, you're an idiot?
No,
you
the
don't
problem
even know
is,
what's going on."
Asher, you studied sound engineering at university, right?
Only for a little bit.
We studied politics. What happens at politics lectures and seminars is you go, A, I'm hungover, and B, it's a quid a pint. Right? That is what happens. You go, oh, why is he asking questions? Can I ask you this? No, shut up.
I told you yesterday I did also get an offer to do biology at Oxford.
Brooks.
Polytechnic, The Times, Labour tax plans trigger exodus of millionaires. They're all going, they're all leaving. They already have left, a lot of them.
That's what I thought. I thought most well, there are a lot of millionaires.
Mullins is back though, isn't he?
He is.
Which means we will never know whether he's Rod Stewart or not.
But he's coming back with reform in some way. Is that right?
I mean,
Reform UK.
The chairman has said that I want it because he's a Remainer. He's still a staunch Remainer, and and he also the COVID jab
anymore.
Apparently, Charlie has made that decision.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you what. I genuinely think that's interesting about the Charlie Mullins attempt to join.
He's a good guy, by the way.
Attempt to join
Some
reform.
Of his views are a bit.
Attempt to join reform is Charlie Mullins has not changed his opinion on the EU. But what he's also said is, well, hang on, there is a problem with the disconnect between the political class and ordinary people, right? And that is the bigger issue than the Brexit referendum.
Well, I have changed my view on the EU because I think the EU could probably run us better than the British government has. I mean, I think we've discovered the British government can't actually run the country for the British people.
Aren't they?
Maybe Brussels could do it.
He's going over and meeting them. He's giving all. We still haven't had Brexit. Do you know what I mean?
That's right, and it's already going.
Who knew when the Europeans were going, ha ha ha? You think you can run yourself? Ha! And
they were right.
We're thinking. Well, hang on, we're one of the biggest and most powerful countries in the world. They weren't talking about that. They were talking, literally, we've met the people in Westminster and they can't run a bath.
Well, I mean, it's not that they can't do the stuff, it's that they do everything where the British people are last.
It's amazing.
Are last.
If at all.
It's amazing the way that the EU, in reality, whatever you think about the EU, membership of the EU disguised the way that parish council Starmer and his mates were just dreadful at running a country.
It ruined the politicians, didn't it? Because they didn't have to, they were a council, basically.
I mean, we had Ian Hislop said this. I can't believe we ended up with a British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, who didn't know anything about politics. Right. He didn't.
Yeah. He'd only been an MP 8 years. He was a Goldman Sachs guy, wasn't he?
The reality is, the Greek Prime Minister's turning up. Oh, I'll tell you what we'll do. What we'll do is we'll mention the Elgin marbles. Right. the Greek Prime Minister always mentions the Elgin marbles. What you go is, well, of course we're going to do a negotiation, but it's up to the British Museum. You don't go, we're not giving them back. Well, that's helpful, isn't it? On the day before the talks.
And leaving the D-Day commemoration, and then just calling the election at completely the wrong
He didn't know anything
time.
about politics, but Starmer's risen without trace. I genuinely do. I think that Asher's right. Asher has a theory that Keir Starmer does not want to be there because he never realised how hard it was going to be.
Well, I told you earlier, I need a trigger warning every time he appears on the television because it really.
Now the gallery's
riles
saying
me up.
the gallery's saying that Keir Starmer has said he wants to do 10 years. Well, that's surefire evidence he'll be out by Christmas.
Yeah.
That's right.
We'll be knackered if he does that. Anyway, that story: a record number of millionaires have left Britain since Keir Starmer came to power amid growing concerns that Labour's tax plans are exiling international investors and damaging the economy. Treasury is facing calls to reverse its crackdown on non-domiciled residents in the scholar. And yeah, this is the Trump thing: fake tan, bare legs and heels. Team Trump is back. Yeah, apparently Trump's going to have fake tan. Well, we know that. Bare legs and heels. I don't know about going that far. But
This very, very, if you like, only way is Essex. The only way is Essex styling.
They got it from Trump.
Has become very popular in the United States of America. Jess, are you going to do it?
What do you mean? She is already, look.
Yeah, it's not my personal style, but I think the Americans can pull it off in a different way that the British can't, in all honesty. Like, I think actually Trump rocks a fake tan, whereas most of the chavs you see in Bolton cannot.
I had a fake tan the other day, but that's because we don't have makeup artists anymore.
I'll tell you, I absolutely loved. My favourite one was on Fox News. That you know, she was blonde, she was fit as a butcher's dog. All the fake. She looked as if she dumped her face into whatever Ian Dale uses, right? And she turned orange. But I loved it. I watched one day. She was going. Major earthquake kills 20,000 people. Hello everyone, I'm Larry Dew. Be happy. It's a sad day.
And sad news: Dennis Law has died. I think he was 85 in 1940 to 2025. I think he played for Man U and Man City. Of course, played along and England and played alongside Georgie Best. So very sad news.
Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Let's go to a break and we will be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
with Andre and Ash. We've got Jess and Tom who are with us as well. And just to remind you, the Sun's exclusive from yesterday. And then we said, well, why hasn't he breached his licence, his probation licence? And yeah, apparently he had, you know, bragging about killing people. What a disgusting
so just to be
human
clear,
being. Jimmy Mizen's a murderer.
Jimmy Mizen's murderer, and I want to congratulate all of you, whether you be a Sun reader, whether you be a Talk viewer or listener, the fact that we all got together and pressured the Home Office in the past 24 hours, you know, it does work. I know you don't
basically
think
just
it does.
notified them because they didn't even know until the Sun got involved. And we got involved.
Jimmy Mizen's murderer, he's a 16-year-old boy. He was stabbed, and his murderer was on the BBC singing all about it.
I think he was cut with a plate or something. He basically attacked him with a plate. I think they worked at a bakery. It was a disgusting thing. It was.
Yeah, he was actually slashed with a pie tin. Which sounds comical, but of course, if it's snapped, it's jagged.
Well, yeah. It does make a difference, and in these years of, more broadly, these years of being in opposition, the media and the voices and the petitions, although they're not going to get the government out, they do make.
They make a
people
big
think
difference.
Twice.
Yeah.
Why? So you're from an organisation. Before we go back to papers, you're from an organisation, the Free Speech Union.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about why what you said, why you said what you've just said. Because I would say, well, you know, the government's after us. The police are going to. I mean, look, the police are going to knock on my door over a non-crime hate incident. They backed out so far because I've said I've got a 6-hour lecture on it. But
yeah. It's exactly the same principle of the trade union. I think it's that when you are the little man, the little person, and you've not got a voice, and you've not got power, and you've not got money, and you are being beaten up by a hostile environment,
hostile government,
and hostile generally against free speech, whether it's the police, whether it's the institutions, whether it's the education system, whether it's what we were talking earlier, things like critical race theory, all going against free speech, then in that context you've got to get together and work together.
What is a typical case? So first of all, how can people join? What's the cost and what's a typical case?
So freespeechunion.org, you can go there, you can click on join, and it starts at £5 per month. In fact, £30 per year, which is even better than that. And I mean, the typical sort of case we get the two types. We get the ones you see in the headlines. So this week we had the case of Sabah Porsaidi, who was working for an organisation called Hightown Housing Association, and was going to get a promotion. But that promotion was taken away from him when it was discovered that he was working or representing or had links with Reform UK.
He was a candidate for Reform, was he? I don't know, but
but I can't remember what his exact role with Reform was.
A lot of cancelled people, but you've helped.
Yeah, but that promotion, which was really, really important, was taken away. They said it wasn't in alignment with their values.
Yeah. That's what they do now.
This is what they do. Organisations have values.
So I've seen that Stuart Lee, who actually I think is quite funny, but before he looked like William Shatner, which was really weird. But he sort of says, look, I believe in free speech, but you've also got to believe in consequences as well. So you don't believe in free speech, do you?
Exactly. You don't. So when it gets hard, when it gets difficult, free speech means nothing until you're actually in conflict, until you're actually disagreeing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Do you think he looks like a fat Shatner? No, sorry, Karen.
Who, me?
Stuart Lee.
I was going to say recently, I've not told many people about this, and I've handled it professionally, but I had to quit a job because they wouldn't let me speak on immigration. It was a libertarian organisation, specifically a libertarian women's organisation. And they had a meeting with me, the two managers, and they were saying, you're being collectivist, you can't group people together. And during this, I gave like a monologue crying about the situation. I was saying, young girls are being groomed all over the UK. My cousin, was in the Manchester Arena bombing, she witnessed that stuff. It's really impacted my community.
I think you should name the libertarian organisation.
I don't want to start conflict.
Well, the PC actually, you know, there was a security guard who didn't want to seem racist, so he didn't challenge the man who did it with a boy or man, whatever he was, scumbag, who blew himself off. Who blew himself up. And just on this sort of story, police, this is in the Telegraph, police record ethnicity less as race fears grow. So they're doing it even less than they weren't doing it before.
What you've got to do, what you've got to do, because police have quotas, right? So if they stop one black guy, they've got to stop 3 white people. What you have to do, because it's self-defining, if the police stop you and ask for your ethnicity, It's self-defining. Say you're a Vietnamese boat person.
Well, the argument I heard that they weren't doing this was it takes too much time.
Rubbish. They can just
but
ask
they can
you.
Still do non-crime
It takes 1 second to. They used to ask. I remember I got stopped and a policewoman said, "Are you black or white?" She said that. So they used to fill it in.
But the point is they can turn up on Alison Pearson's doorstep. They can do non-crime hate.
Do you know my favourite?
Only on one side. If I say someone's anti-Semitic on these marches, they don't get arrested for
my favourite.
They've got time to investigate it.
My favourite was the MP who they tried to do over for having to go at Travellers, and he said, because I have no fixed home, because I live in between Cardiff and London, I am myself a traveller. And the police had to accept the definition, and you can't be racist to yourself. But my favourite one is Lee Jasper, where he goes, racism is defined as racial discrimination, but it's only real racism if it's a majority being racist to a minority. So hang on. So a minority being racist to a majority is not real racism. So apartheid South Africa was a non-racist country.
Well, white people are the minority now in London for a start. Anyway, we've got to whip through the papers. Number 10 blames Ben for Gerry Adams' payout. Hillary Benn was behind a decision to paving the way for Gerry Adams to claim compensation. Number 10 has said, well, doesn't really surprise me. Hostages to be released after ceasefire sign. It's been ratified, so hopefully that's going to go ahead. And we became UK's best pub by stopping food. Apparently that's in Oswald Street. And the big story, Trump to rule on Starmer's Chagos deal. Basically, it's not going to happen. Britain puts future of Ireland on hold as Mandelson ramps up anti-China rhetoric. Donald Trump will rule on the future of the Chagos Islands after his team directly intervened in the British government's
Well, what about this UK's best pub because we don't do food? Can I tell you what you have to do in pubs? Get rid of coffee. Can I have 4 coffees? Get 2 more.
Coffee?
I like a coffee. And more Scotch eggs.
And she can't work the bloody machine. It takes about 15 minutes.
Yeah, what's wrong with coffee, man?
No, the problem is she can't work the machine. So you go,
yeah, they're rubbish. People behind the bar are useless at making a latte.
Dean, how do you do this? I'll just show you how to do it. 40 minutes later, I've just one step
Anyway, if you really want to know, look in the mirror. You won't remember that ad, Jess. No, that was the ad. Free National Trust family.
Right. No, I'm sorry, Asher, we've got to stop you. Right, Free National Trust family pass. Goodbye. We're not doing that.
They're woke, aren't they?
The National Trust are the enemy of this country, and we don't read out enemy offers.
But there is another important story again. Let me farewell to Dennis Law. He died at 84, used to play.
Don't care.
We do care about that.
Dennis, I will tell you something. You know, your death is sad, but what is sadder is what has happened to the National Trust.
But there is Restore Trust, which is trying to...
talkBsport would disagree with you there.
The organisation that's trying to...
take them back.
Well, yeah,
take back control of the National... Get that back, Jack. No, I'm joking.
By the way, Haaland's just signed a 9-year deal with Man City, the longest deal ever. £500,000 a week. Not bad, is it? £500,000, and that's just his... He'll get sponsorship.
It's almost what Hartley
He'll be
Brewer
earning
gets.
about $1 million a week. Yeah, not quite Hartley Brewer levels, but not bad. Anyway, the Eye Weekend. This is the last. Maybe we've gone too quick through the papers because we're now just on the Eye Weekend. So we'll take our time. The Eye Weekend is going to be... and train drivers to demand bigger 2025 pay deal in new headache for Labour. Well, of course they were going to do that. You didn't offer them to do... They don't have to walk through snow. If they're having a break and one of their bosses goes, "Hello, Kevin," they can start their break again. It's what they call Spanish practices. There was that song, wasn't there?
Well, I'll tell you what we should do, right? So we've done the pay-per review quickly, but there has been all these updates on grooming gangs, and we know that Jess Gill has some knowledge on it. Obviously, young woman from Bolton, without being disrespectful. I'll tell you what we'll do. Why don't we go to a break now? Let's talk about these updates on grooming gangs, because I know you're all very concerned about it. And by the way, we're going to take your calls from midnight, 0344 499 1000.
Ring now, book it, and we'll call you back.
Really interested to hear what you think about the updates on the grooming gang, the way that the Guardian was saying that the government has acquiesced to demands for a review, which is, of course, nonsense. The Guardian are dishonest anyway. And also, what about this Drill Act 10, who is, in fact, somebody who murdered Jimmy Mizzen. The guy murdered Jimmy Mizzen, and he's now talking about how much he enjoyed that murder. He's been recalled to prison. What do you think about the fact that we are now a lawless country?
And the BBC are promoting this sort of people.
Back in a mo.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is the James Whale Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould, and I wanted to talk now about this whole grooming gang update. Now, look, without being funny, Jess Gill is not a victim of the grooming gangs, even though she's a young woman from Bolton.
That wouldn't be funny anyway.
Without being weird, people might think that based on the accent and whatever. But we've had these reviews. Apparently, the government is now going to support 5 reviews. Are you happy or sad?
I don't think it's enough. I can't believe it's only now we're having these reviews.
But they're not having a proper review anyway. It's a fudge, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about it?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest issue that I can see from this is that these local reviews are not going to have the ability to subpoena and force people to appear in front of them. Now, you know, for a review to have teeth, you need to be able to say, we're going to call this person, we're going to call that person, we're going to call that person, then they have to, effectively, if they don't turn up, it's like contempt of court. But when it's just a local review, not a national inquiry, that power is not going to.
But they're doing that on purpose to fudge it and say, look, we can't talk about it, we're doing an inquiry. But look, basically, we know what's happened, and what we need now is forget inquiries. We need police investigations, mass arrests of the perpetrators, mass arrests of the people, because they can be found out, and do the fudge investigation after. But let's just get, there's girls being raped and tortured right now across the country.
But I don't think the story's over at all. I mean,
Well,
when you think that just a week ago
they're trying to make it over, aren't they?
They keep trying to shut it down, and it's really interesting freedom of speech.
Well, Elon Musk has got to be thanked for it, even though some of his rhetoric's been wrong. He's got to be thanked for making this happen, and I suppose other people like Tommy Robinson highlighting it, and Elon Musk finding it from him.
And the point's been made multiple times that the people who don't want this inquiry to happen keep on making Musk the topic of conversation.
It's a great thing. I don't care what anyone's done in their life. Well, obviously I do, but it doesn't mean they can't say, oh, these people are being raped. Like I said last night, you wouldn't call 999 go to someone being murdered and they go, oh yeah, but you've got a criminal record, so we're not coming round. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just deflecting with that, aren't they?
There's a lot of deflection going on. What about you, Jess? What do you think?
Yeah, as somebody who's grown up pretty much with this issue being a main issue, the first thing I knew of this was the Free Girls bio documentary series, where it went through these 3 girls who were groomed by these Pakistani men.
When was that then?
Oh, I don't know, 2014. I could be wrong.
And it's been going on apparently since the 70s.
Yeah.
Charlie Peters.
Hundreds of thousands of girls. It's millions of rapes. It's the biggest sexual crime in this country's history, and it was covered up by governments and councils.
I don't get how it's controversial to say that it's happening.
Well, imagine if it was white working class guys raping Pakistani Muslim girls. It'd be mass arrest, and quite rightly so.
Well, it just shows how much
it's two-tier. It just proves it's two-tier.
Well, it shows that we are now being ruled not as individual citizens, we're being ruled as groups.
Parallel societies.
And the most threatening group of all is the major group, i.e. there's a British white group.
But it's not actually. It's the other groups.
But they're seen as the most dangerous by our new colonial masters. Effectively, we've got a colonial police force now.
Has it got worse, Jess, in the years? Or is it getting, is it less?
I think people are more happy to talk about it. Although saying that, I did go to Rochdale recently because I was at home for Christmas, so I was like, I need to, see what's happening. And we did speak to one man called Billy, who runs this organisation called Parents Against Groomers, who really raises the alarms on this.
Because sometimes the parents get arrested, or a lot of times, because they're obviously against the narrative. But
I think actually another thing as well, a lot of the parents, they weren't really there for the kids, and I think that's another aspect, the vulnerable kids. But when I was going around Rochdale and I was asking them, just the average person, the man on the street, will you talk about this issue? I didn't even mention the grooming to begin with because I didn't want to speak them. I just said violence against girls, but that was enough of a dog whistle for them to go, no, I don't want to talk about it.
Do you think the working... Because I was speaking to someone today and I said, it's terrible, the working... Why haven't they, marched down? Is there a case to say, because these are not even... These are girls from orphanages, a lot of... Are they not cared about by by the white working class population as much because they're orphanage girl or they're girls that they say, oh, they're bad girls. I mean,
well, I think.
Do you think there's some of that?
As a white working class person, I think we have lost this sense of community with the police, for example, not being there as much. We've been just the disintegration of industries, for example, in the north.
And look after number one sort of attitude.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no community sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's a massive reason why this is happening, and also just so much trust in the state, which has proven to fail in terms of the social services, in terms of like orphanages.
Well, they didn't fail. They colluded on purpose to stop it.
So is it our fault?
They didn't fail. They knew what they were doing.
What do you mean by who's
us? I mean, look, it's clear that there are recent migrants, first or second generation, and there are people who were there originally. I mean, let's be honest, part of the racism of these grooming gangs is to say, well, white people don't give a toss, do they? You know, they're
not going to go to heaven. You know, some of them think, well, they don't cover their hair. It doesn't matter. They're like animals. Look at the Yazidi girls. What happened to them? This is sort of the way
white people don't look after their own?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I will say one thing.
Well, no, they're not certain. If you're not of that certain, I have
Pakistani friends of mine where, you know, they share a house. So, you know, grandma, even though she's a bit old, is making the dinner for everybody and the lunch and dinner and come in and go whenever you want and whatever. And what I mean by that is that the house is constantly manned, it's constantly busy. There's eight bedrooms or whatever, but you have a nice place.
Well, I'm not being funny, but we shouldn't have to live like that. I think what Britain and a lot of the West has done tremendously until mass immigration is have a high trust society where young girls could, before this went along, they could go around in like, you know, tight clothes and cramped, and no one would think anything of it
and
because that's like our disposition. Yeah. And now, because these people coming from these backgrounds, Muslim backgrounds, well, they see.
Well, it's actually third world backgrounds.
Yeah, it's not just a religion thing.
It's what used to be called brute nations.
Well, it's 7th century medieval culture that believe women don't really matter at all. You know what I mean? And gay people should be executed.
I think medieval culture was probably more advanced than that, to be fair. But
some wasn't. Yeah.
Well, no. I think you make a reasonable point. I mean, the standard of treatment of women in Saudi Arabia is without question worse than it was during Henry VIII in Britain. Yeah. So you would have to say to the people of Saudi, you know, all these Saudi princes, do you know something about the Saudi princes? None of you have got a degree in geology. None of you know anything about oil drilling. I mean, can you imagine, if my dad was the king of Saudi Arabia, he'd go, at least know how to bloody drill the oil wells. These are useless. Useless people, morons. And the reason we put the House of Saud in charge was because we knew they were stupid enough to pump the oil for free, virtually. But the point is, they treat their women worse than Britain's ever treated their women. And I tell
they have slavery still.
And I'll tell you the reason. And my message is firm to the King of Saudi Arabia. You're backward. You're backward, aren't you? You are a backward person.
Whatever you do, don't ever go to the Saudi embassy with Prince Chop Chop in charge.
But look, what MBS is the Keir Starmer of this, which is his job is to pretend he's not a backward savage. Keir Starmer's job is to pretend he's not a Soviet communist. That's the reality, isn't it?
Neither of them are doing very good jobs.
No, that's right, yeah. No, at least be good at that. Yeah. I mean, MBS isn't even good at pretending.
Do you remember Trump said, hey, you need to do that a bit more carefully when you bump people off?
Yeah.
But has the dam broken now? I mean, the genie can't... I'm going to mix up my metaphors. The genie can't go back in the bottle now. It's over the last 30 years, we've had moments like this where people have gone, oh, my Lord, this is happening, and everyone's
we just didn't know about it years ago.
Well, we kind of sometimes did.
What they have to do, I will tell you what has to happen with this country is next week, and it's look, the trial of the Southport attack will go on for several weeks. The government, the police, the CPS, the establishment, the BBC have to behave in a responsible fashion. If they do not behave in a responsible fashion, then we've seen it loads with the riots. There will be riots of white people, right? We've seen it already. Now, if they behave in a responsible fashion, don't lie, don't flannel people, have a serious prosecution, a genuine process, then whatever the outcome, it will be fine. What they will do is they will make a catastrophic mistake. But I think... I don't want to go any further on that simply because we don't want to prejudice the trial. But you know, what has happened so far in this case has been so grotesquely irresponsible by the police and the government and the CPS that I worry. I genuinely do.
But it does feel like the conversation around the grooming gangs has changed.
Yes.
And the work that Charlie Peters particularly has done is just stunning in terms of really drawing the curtain back on this and saying, you know, it was really this bad.
But are they trying to draw it out? And if you look at the Mr. Bates post office thing, that was all a big scandal, but it seems to be petering out, doesn't it? And I think they're thinking, well, that's what we'll do with this. But I think this is too big. It's the biggest sexual crime
Didn't the
in this
post office
country.
have an inquiry, though?
Yeah, they've had it and people will get paid out, but no one's been arrested. They should be thrown in prison, the chief executive.
By the way, I just wondered if you could, if you could just remind me what you're doing tomorrow, Tom.
I think hang on. I've got to buy a ticket, and I'll get onto a train to Derby. Is that right? Is that right?
What's going on in Derby?
Something's happening in Derby.
Well,
I can't remember. He said this earlier. He dropped it on me.
Have you got anything to do when you're there?
It's funny you should.
There's a show apparently.
No, say no, I haven't.
No.
Well, don't worry. I've got something you can go to.
It's funny you should mention. It's funny you should mention that you will be in ridings in the Amber Valley tomorrow, Tom.
It's odd.
Because, by pure coincidence, in a wholly unrehearsed moment, let me tell you that myself and Lois Perry are doing the first live stage show together, and we're going to be doing lots across the year.
It's stand-up, puppetry, and magic, and much more.
Yeah, we're going to make the enemies of freedom disappear. That will be.
And
the
it's
magic.
only a tenner, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tenner. So what you have to do is go to my X account, which is x.com/AndreJP.
You just went for a slash, didn't you, as well?
Yeah. So buy the tickets. It starts about 7 o'clock, tenner tomorrow night. If you're in the area, we're going to tour across the entire country, but this
For
is
some
the
reason, they're starting in Riding.
We're starting in Derbyshire because we love Derbyshire.
There you go.
Why?
It's full of
What for?
Derby County fans.
Yeah, the Rams, up the Rams.
Up the
Used to be at
Rams.
the baseball ground, but
There's a
they
place.
moved
There's a
somewhere.
place in
Why
Lancashire
baseball
called
ground?
Rams Bottom, isn't there?
There is.
It's
There is,
Canal
yeah.
Street.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. Okay. So what do you what should happen next with all of this grooming gangs? Should we literally just go for a public inquiry?
We need it.
I don't think it's enough. I
I think we need a police investigation
well,
first of all.
not just that, but as Rupert Lowe said in Parliament, I think we need just a block on Pakistani people coming over. I think it's got to that point. If it's between letting people in and grooming girls, I think the safety of girls should be prioritised.
Well, I personally think that. So first of all, if I was to support that proposal, I'll tell you the reason I would support
It's
that
certain
proposal.
areas in Pakistan. It's not the whole of Pakistan. There's certain areas.
Not because it's Pakistan. Because Pakistan is clearly a country, but what's happening in the UK, the tribal areas. So what I would say is, that we have to have quotas from various communities, and you can create various matrix. But if what's happened is you're creating a ghetto or a tribal area in Britain, then there's clearly too many of you, and we've not yet, if you like diluted it or made you part of the community. And so I would be in favour of stopping Pakistani immigration on the basis that there are clearly too many people coming to the country for Britain to cope if there's a ghetto. Tom?
Well,
I know you don't really agree with that. I think there's a point to be made, though.
Well, I just think that we've got so many problems, first of all, to deal with here, and with the fallout of what's happening. And I watched Sadiq Khan being questioned in City Hall and was just appalled.
Yeah, that was disgraceful. Why? Because a reform said, what was it exactly? She asked about the rape gangs,
are there
grooming
in
gangs.
London, in
And
the
he went, what do you mean,
capital? And then
grooming
he said,
gangs? What does
I
that
don't
mean?
understand what you mean.
And she went, oh, well, you know, the Rotherham. No, I don't. And then some other bloke asked him, and he said, oh, you're asking it because I'm a Pakistani Muslim? And he goes, no, because you're the chief of the
Because you're the
police,
mayor.
basically. You're in charge of the police. And
this
he
is the
plays the
capital.
race card, of course.
My jaw hit the floor.
But he's arrogant, isn't he? He doesn't care.
We have an institutional crisis, clearly, in this country, and it cuts, as we've said. Now, I don't know what the solution to that is. That I really want to find a way
I've got
through
to say
that.
to you, we've had a complaint into the studio from a gang of horse groomers.
Oh no.
Who have said a grooming gang is a team of people who look after horses. Right, can we just be clear that this is a rape gang, not grooming gangs? I want to apologise to grooming gangs who groom horses. Right. Also bridegrooms and other people.
Anyone getting married this week?
Yeah. Well, that's all we've read.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
you.
Yeah, we're just taking calls in the next bit, but yeah, you've both been brilliant.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much to Jess Gill and to Tom Tarris.
Freedom of speech
Tom,
union.
freespeechunion.org.
That's it, freespeechunion.org. Click join.
OK, we will be back with your calls just in a couple of moments.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. Look, we're just going to go straight to the phone, so let's go straight to Paula in Halifax. Paula, you're on Talk.
Hello again.
Hello.
Morning.
What you have to understand is they don't know why you're saying hello again. Can you explain?
Because when I rang up earlier, you answered the bloody phone.
I did.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, what I did was I went out to the toilet whilst you were talking, and then when the phone rang in the gallery, rather than the assistant producer...
Be careful that, because the union, you know, demarcation of jobs and all that.
I often go... I normally go, this is the Andre Walker and Asher Gould show. Press 1 for Andre, press 2 for Asher, press 3 to make a complaint.
Yeah,
and people sometimes...
I just went higher, Andre.
Yeah, she did know it was me. She did.
Yeah, I did, yeah, too right. Are you all right, Ash?
All right, yeah, I'm all right, yeah.
How's our James?
Oh, sorry?
How's James?
He's all right. Did you see earlier? He came on earlier live at the beginning of the show. If you didn't watch on YouTube,
I've stopped watching. I've stopped listening and watching for a bit.
Why? Is it too good, too rich for you? Why have you stopped?
Well, no, because my favourite person is James Whale and you.
Well, I'm here.
No, I know.
He's back next Friday. And what about you've hurt Andre's feelings now?
Andre's all right when he's in a good mood.
Well, you've not really helped by that, you know.
Why am I not in a good mood today?
No,
Chuck
you're all
agrees.
right. You're fine.
Don't worry. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll play by the end of the show. We'll play the James Whale message again.
Yeah, but what did you want to say, Paula? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, what I wanted to talk about was the fact of what you were on about earlier, and the CID came to my house. Oh, it's a good few years ago now, probably 10 years ago.
Yeah. What was that about then?
It was about grooming, and they wanted to speak to Chloe.
Who's Chloe? Your daughter, is that?
Yeah, that's my daughter, yeah. and they wanted to check her Facebook, and they did it instantly. There were no messing about.
Well, what were they checking for?
Because there was a girl called Chloe who was 12 or 13 who was being groomed by a taxi firm.
Wow.
But what were the police looking for?
Checking whether she was the Chloe.
Yeah, but I mean, what?
Yeah, they wanted to look to see if on Chloe's Facebook if she knew the other Chloe who was being groomed.
Doesn't seem like much police work. I mean, they just found another girl called Chloe and wanted to see if she knew another girl called Chloe.
Well, okay. Let's give this a chance. Paula, give me a second. Let's give this a chance, and I'll tell you why. Because it's such an important issue, and we have castigated the police for doing nothing. Talk us through the whole thing. So, what they banged on the door, you opened it. What did they say to you?
Well, they didn't bang on my door at first. They went to my neighbours because I wasn't in.
Right.
And they said, I need to speak to Paula and Chloe.
Right.
And they said it's CID.
And what was the
I was
results of it all?
Well, absolutely nothing, because they looked on Chloe's Facebook, but they came straight in and they just said, right, I want to look at your phone. There were no, can I look at your phone? It was, I want to look at your phone.
So no warrants or anything, and just saying we're going to be doing that.
Yeah, I mean they were fine.
But that's not.
Well, that's not fine, is it?
No, I'm not worried about the whole whether they should have had a warrant or not. I'm worried about, first of all, what did they say to you? Why did they get the real Chloe? Did you get any feedback later? Did you know anything about it?
No, absolutely nothing. Nothing at all.
Well, this makes me think maybe they did that to go, oh, look, well, we tried, we looked at, you know what I mean? It could be something like that, couldn't it? Because we've heard about a lot of these places, they didn't want to catch the perpetrators. Maybe this was a ruse.
Well, what baffled me, Ash, was how the hell did they know I'd got a daughter called Chloe?
Well, that's not too difficult. What they could have done, as an example, is gone to all the schools and said, we want a list of everyone called Chloe who is 12 years old. There's loads of ways of doing it.
The census has it all on, doesn't it?
But it may well be the reason they didn't ask for a warrant. Sorry, they didn't have a warrant and they just came in. Is because if they're pursuing an offender, they are able to just not use a warrant, although that's a hard sell.
But that's when you need to arrest someone. I mean, we've heard about some of the police. One of them actually was, I don't know if it was in Yorkshire, but they made a girl take a morning after pill to stop her being pregnant. She didn't want to do it, and they sort of put it in her mouth or something. There's an investigation going on.
Can I now ask you, Paula, the next question, which is obvious. So, thank God. What an awful thing to say, but thank God it's not your Chloe, right? But unfortunately, it was a Chloe, right? But
I was really shocked.
What did you do next after that? Because now you're aware, 10 years ago, that there are takeaway drivers, there are taxi drivers, there are people in your community
I'll tell you what I did.
Yeah.
I sat her down and I said, Chloe, well, she looked at me at first and said, what have you done? Because knowing that the police, but I didn't realise it was CID.
Right.
And I just said to her, what have you done?
And what did she say? Nothing, I haven't done anything.
She went, nothing, Mum.
Did you know about grooming gangs going on in your area at the time? Because it was quite well known, wasn't it?
I had heard of it, but I've always stressed to her, always, when she used to walk to school, the upper school, and said, oh, no, I want to pick you up and drop you off. No, Mum, nobody else's parents do that. So you've got to give them a bit of leave.
I know, but it's just interesting to know that everyone, it seems to have been in the open. Everyone knew who these people were and it was going on, and, it's terrible.
I actually think that's true, Ash. I actually think
Did you get the sense, and this is where I imagine you're going to be supportive of the police, did you get the impression that the police were attempting to bully you because they feared you were a victim? Or did you get the impression that the police were there to help?
I got the impression they were there to help.
Well, that's good news.
That is good news.
Yeah, they were really relaxed. They just said, is it all right, Chloe, if I look at your phone?
Well,
we're just
good.
looking for someone, and They didn't even, because Chloe was so young at 12, they didn't even sort of say what they were looking for.
Yes.
They told me afterwards.
And how do you deal with that? Because it is awkward. I mean, to say there's some ropey old blokes who want to rape you.
They're horrendous. Because I'm thinking, because she used to get taxis to school, sometimes she used to be an idiot and say, well, I'm not going to school today because I don't want to. So, I'd get her a taxi to school, or school would get her a taxi when she became a pain in the ass.
And actually, to be fair, Paula, and I'm not being disrespectful, because young people, are all different, and some can be more difficult than others. But obviously, young people who are getting taxis from the school are some of the people whose behaviour is already a level of concern to the school.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the worry is that these marginal children are not being supported
by anyone.
No, they're not. And they also, I also know for a fact that if the child refuses to go to the school, an adult school, that they will pay for the taxi for them to go there.
Yes. Although, to be fair, I will say one thing. The taxi drivers are subject to a DBS check. Normally, it's the larger firms that are allowed to do it. And normally, and it varies from borough to borough, normally there is a support worker in the taxi. Not actually because they believe that the taxi drivers are perverts, but because very often sending a taxi to a kid's house and they're in bed isn't the solution. You have to go in and kind of motivate them, and clearly that's the job of a support worker, not a taxi driver.
But, well, yeah, I appreciate that, but I was going, Chloe, get out of bed. You're going to school.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't want to go.
Can I ask you one final question? We've talked to you for a long time, but I think it is worthwhile. Is a lot of this to do with lack of opportunity, poverty? I look around working class communities where the guy with the big Rolls Royce is the local drug. Well, it might not be a Rolls Royce, but the guy with the big car is the local drug dealer. And kids don't aspire to go to the top like they might have done. I mean, my dad grew up on the council estate, but he became
a massive drug dealer. No, he didn't.
But he ended up becoming an apprentice electrician and going all the way to running a major company. I just worry that part of this is low aspiration. But
are they right? There isn't much hope for a lot of these communities.
Frankly, the best you can expect in life is a bag of chips and a sofa bed.
Sounds good to me.
My daughter wasn't brought up like that. I lived in a brand new apartment.
Right.
She wasn't brought up like that.
No, but I'm talking about your community in general in Halifax.
Well, I didn't live in Halifax. I lived in Brighouse.
Right.
And I lived in a brand new apartment for 12 and a half years.
Right.
But it's different working class, isn't
there? I moved there so my daughter could go to a decent school.
Yeah.
But you see, there's different. There's some people who would just let their girls go out and do what they want, and a lot of these girls were from homes where they didn't have any parents, and so they didn't get in. But obviously you kept your eye on your daughter and made sure she... Although you couldn't get her out of bed for school.
Well, I was at
nightmare.
I was walking from a studio in Wapping to here down Wapping High Street, which some of you will know, many of you will not, but it was night. It was probably about 6 o'clock at night. It was dark. And I know it's not the same thing, but there must have been like a 7-year-old on a skater come past us. And we're thinking, well, hang on a second, the place is pitch black. And yet parents have thought that is appropriate. It does happen.
Yeah, well, I wasn't that type of parent at all.
But do you remember in the old days, you could be 7, 8 years old and you'd get the bus or walk to school? It's not like that now.
Yeah. I remember when I was younger.
It was a high trust society. That's what it was, a different world. And it's
I maintain, Paula, and I'll repeat this point again, the big problem with uncontrolled immigration is people have got no skin in the game, right? If you loot a shop and it's owned by your uncle, then that is madness. But actually, if you are plonked in a country where you know nobody, where you've got no heritage, you've got no history,
no part of the community to be embarrassed about when you
exactly when you don't think, oh, my dad goes to that synagogue
the family
or that
name
church
and all
or
that.
whatever.
There's none of that anymore.
Absolutely. Okay, Paula, thank you so much. Look, we're going to go for an early bath on the break because I want to talk to Ken in London, because I genuinely think, well, whether he's phoning up just to talk about straight religion, all of these subjects he's very good on.
Can you get my loofah?
Back in a sec.
Thanks.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, Andre, I've got a bit you do. Andre and Ash Talk. We've got loads of calls.
Right,
it's one of those fudge.
Okay, so let's just be clear.
Thanks, man.
Let's just be clear that I deliberately tried to get Asher to do the coming in from the break in order.
I think I managed. I don't think anyone noticed that I had a mouthful of fudge.
No, you had a mouthful of fudge and couldn't talk. So I just thought, what I'll do is shut up and just let him. But anyway, they dumped it.
At least they didn't say bummed again.
They dumped it anyhow. Okay, Ken in London. Ken, you're on Talk.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I was listening to you earlier talking about this murderer, this rapper. He only had 14 years for killing a person. I mean, the world is going mad. He should be kept for life in jail. But I would just like to let you know that the Bible clearly teaches that the judgment for killing another person is to be killed yourself. It's in the scriptures.
An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, isn't it? Yeah.
Let me read it to you. It's in Romans chapter 13. Speaking about the government, he is God's servant for your good, but if you do wrong, you should dread him and be afraid, for he does not bear and wear the sword.
Do you know, Ken? Do you know why I agree with you 100% on this? And I don't always agree with you on everything, though I agree with you on a lot. You know, a Christian or any decent person should not live their life hating. Right, that's the turn the other cheek thing. But the government, society has to protect us, right? So if what we do, you can't. So I always believe that things like jealousy, I believe that things like envy, which is the same thing, believe things like hatred will rot your soul. Right, I genuinely believe that, and will destroy your life. Anytime that I feel jealous, and we all do, I try and beat it out of myself. But in order for you not to feel like that, you need a society where you're protected. Now, if you are asking the parents of Jimmy Mizzen to not hate, to not feel violent, to turn the other cheek, how can they possibly do that when the guy who stabbed their child is rapping on the BBC about how knife crime is marvellous?
But that's irrational hate. Isn't there a difference between irrational hate and a hate where you just...
No, you can't. So the reason I would argue, we'll let Ken respond in a moment, that what the Bible's effectively saying is we will protect you from feeling hate by ensuring that the person that has done this to you is put down with the rest of the animals.
Correct. Let me just finish one sentence here.
Sorry, go on.
Andre. The government is God's servant to execute wrath, punishment, vengeance on the wrongdoer. The government is held by God to execute his righteous anger, which is wrath upon those who murder someone. And the sword, actually, in the time of the New Testament writings, is an instrument of death.
What about for adultery? Does it say you should be executed for adultery or homosexuality? You know, what are the rules on that in the New Testament?
Well, the point here is talking about killing.
No, it doesn't.
Someone
it doesn't. But can I ask you this question, just so I understand this? And by the way, Ken, I'm not going to trip you up. You know me, right? So, first of all, this rapper, this drill rapper called 10. Your view is he murders a 16-year-old boy, and what should happen to him then? Is that he should be executed. He should be sentenced to death. But before that happens, he should be given the opportunity to repent. At which point, people like you will pray for his soul. But then, because of what he's done on earth, what will happen is he's now fixed in a road. He will die because it is right that he's punished for what happens on earth. But if he repents, then God will consider his application for heaven, if you like. Apologies if my language wasn't quite right. Is that your position?
Well, the Bible position is if a person repents of their sin, whatever the sin is, genuinely. The Apostle Paul was a big murderer, but God repented and God used him to write much of the New Testament, Andre. But the thing we've got to remember here is the purpose of the government is to restrain evil from society.
I guess my point, Ken, is this, that Christian forgiveness, punishment first, forgiveness second.
Well, what are you saying, Kenny? What if this guy repented and said, I now found Jesus and what I did was terrible? Would you still say he should be executed?
They should still be executed.
Right,
before
so Andre's point is right.
He's given time and opportunity to repent, but it has to be a genuine repentance. You just can't say, I'm sorry. God knows the heart. But the situation here is, the Bible clearly teaches this, that the government has authority from God in the Bible to severely punish wrongdoers. Evil, wicked people who are a danger to society can be removed on the authority.
And how does it say it should happen? Does it matter the execution method, or is there a way in the Bible?
Well, in the Bible, it was by the sword or beheaded. But
and stoning was in there as well, wasn't it?
The problem is, if you think about the medieval period, which was a very religious period, what they would say back then is, look, these people, when they repent, are going to heaven. Done. So they need a punishment. Now, the big problem, if you believe that theologically, if you simply behead somebody, then actually not much happens. They immediately go to heaven having repented. So actually what they tended to do, this is why they tortured them, because they would want to punish them physically before they went to heaven, if you see what I mean. Now, I'm not suggesting...
Well, some people say now execution should be painful. Some people say, the electric chair is good because you felt pain. Why should you go be put down without any pain if it's a punishment?
But let's remember here, we're talking here about execution. The murderer must be clearly proven beyond any shadow of doubt that he's guilty. That's a crucial matter here. If he is proven,
well, that doesn't happen, does it? You know, there was lots of cases.
Let me answer, Ash. Let me answer.
Miscarriages of justice.
Answer, please, gentlemen. Come on now. Yeah. If a murderer is clearly proven to be guilty beyond
how'd you do that?
Doubt, come on, Ash. Let me answer. God allows the government to remove him from or her from society by execution to protect society. God has placed the government.
Yeah, but innocent people get killed like that beyond reasonable doubt. That's happened here.
Ash, why don't you allow me to answer?
Because I was making the point that beyond reasonable doubt executes innocent people.
Make your point. I'm replying to this. This is an important issue. You're always breaking in.
I've just made a point. That's all. That beyond reasonable doubt kills innocent people.
You need to have more sense. You need to have more sense.
Like Christie, the guy who rolled to his house got executed. Like Derek Bentley. The woman that. Well, I'm just making a point. You can carry on now. I've stopped. So carry on. I'm just pointing out innocent people get executed beyond reasonable doubt.
Listen, you always cut into all your calls. You don't allow them to speak. That's outrageous.
If I have to make a point, I do, yeah.
You need to let people speak.
Well, I do make a point, I do. Well, I do, I like to make a point, and then I just...
See,
I don't always do that, but sometimes I do.
Oh, it's a waste of time.
I was on.
Oh, go on, Ken.
I was on Ken's side in that.
Yeah, you just wound me up, Ken. I
think he's hung up, hasn't he?
Oh well. Ken, he's still to carry on, Ken. I won't interrupt.
Yeah, thanks. Listen, this is an important issue. The law of the land needs to be kept.
I'm not going to interrupt.
The Bible says it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. We have to realise who we're dealing with. We're not dealing with an old man with a white beard in heaven. We're dealing with God who is holy. Completely
but
pure.
Ken, can I now...
judges aren't.
Sorry, can I now ask this question, Ken? Look, right, so let's just be clear with this drill act. I mean, what a pathetic comment to start with. Oh, famous rapper, sitting on a Lamborghini, right?
It's not his Lamborghini.
Get a proper job for a start. But secondly, Ken, what happened? What would you want to do if you were given? If I said to you, look, you can do whatever you want with this bloke, what would you say to him? Because I also think that part of Christian forgiveness has to be turning around and saying, you're a product of this society we built. Now, look, I'm still going to hang you because you're a murderer, and a murderer ought to be hung. But I also want to understand... hung is the older word. Hung, drawn and quartered.
But you weren't killed.
But I would want also, in a sense, and I know this sounds crazy, to apologise to him for the society that we have built that values a murderer, that values a knife attacker, that says, let's stick on the BBC somebody whose only interest is knife attacks, going to the gym and sitting on a Lamborghini.
Andre, we are all held individually responsible for our choices. We can't blame the society. God, we've got a conscience. We all know right from wrong. And I would just like to mention here, if you don't mind...
We're not going to interrupt you anymore, don't worry.
The Bible is the Word of God. Now, what's happening in the teaching of the Bible in society has a great restraining influence on any society. But when you remove the Bible and the teachings of Jesus Christ from a country, a nation, evil always increases.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll tell you what, Saudi Arabia's constitution is the Quran. Maybe Ken would support the Constitution of the United Kingdom being the Bible. By the way, somebody has complained that my jacket's got a hole in it.
No, you pay extra for that. It's like ripped jeans. Don't worry, that's a very high design. No, isn't it? He just rips it up and he can't afford it.
But can I make a point? Right, I really like this jacket. I think it looks amazing. I'm going to try and maybe get some patches on it or something.
Yeah, leather patches, like a physics teacher.
But I don't want to throw this jacket away because...
Just get a new sleeve, mate. There's your old trousers.
Everyone always throws everything away now.
Staple it, yeah.
This jacket looks great. I admit it's got one small...
Just don't lift your arm up.
Well, all right.
You're giving it away.
I won't flail.
Just lift one arm up.
We're going to be talking to Christian in Rochdale straight after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello? Sorry, I look like Steptoe's son. I don't
Which
get that.
one?
Victoria tweeted that. Okay. Let's go
Yeah,
to
he
Chris.
did have a hole in his thing, Steptoe.
I like this jacket. We're going to get some patches. Okay, Christian is in Rochdale. Christian, you're on Talk.
Hi, how are you doing?
You're all right, then. Hey, up. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. Basically, I've started getting around the streets of Rochdale on foot, just sort of speaking to people, just trying to get into a bit of sort of civilian journalism, really. So last night was my first night, and two people I spoke to, brothers. I mean, to be fair, they look like they were sort of far down the road of being drug use themselves. But you know, I had a good chat with them even still, and they told me a story about a girl who two girls who yesterday had been taken into care because they said that the parents weren't drug users, but the father was beating them up. Now, the story that these two girls have gone into care and they've been separated from each other. So, obviously, they've been separated from the parents, being separated from each other, and then my main concern really was, well, what's the care that they have at that point? Is that where people are sort of finding their way into the hands of...
Yeah, and why separate sisters as well? Why would you do that?
Yeah. Well, you're
That's
just
cruel.
In an already vulnerable situation, you're making them more vulnerable. Why do it?
Yeah, terrible.
So,
I've got to say to you, if you are... So you're filming and chatting to people in Rochdale, are you?
Yes.
Well, okay, I want to follow you.
As a
because I think-
citizen journalist, and what are you putting it on? Are you on a YouTube? Are you on one of those YouTube things?
Yeah, I've started a YouTube channel literally yesterday.
What's it called?
Well, my name's just Christian Drogan on YouTube.
Christian?
Okay, so let me tell you something. I don't care if you've only got 4 followers. I think this is an important thing. So how do I spell Drogan?
It's D-R-O-G-A-N.
D-R-O-G-A-N. Christian Drogan. And is it no spaces?
It's just a space. The handle is at Englishman Talks.
All right,
okay. We're looking at Christian Drogan, Englishman Talks.
All right. Well, I think we're
That's
going
what
to...
you should have just said. That.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes.
All right.
But no, I mean, to be fair, I've grown up in Rochdale all my life, and one of the things that I have, to be honest, I mean, it's a bit of a long shot, but I'm making roads into trying to become, you know, in the next election, I'd like to become the next MP for Reform in Rochdale. But that's another story.
Well, let me tell you. The most important thing you need to do, and take this from me because I know a little bit about it, and I'm sure Ash is going to agree. It doesn't matter that you've got 3 followers. It was 2 before, and now I'm the 3rd.
What was it called again, Christy? What?
But
an Englishman? What?
What you do is you get.
It's a good handle, actually.
If you've spoken to people, you get your camera out and you film them and you talk to them and make it. Don't worry about the production at this stage. Worry about getting the news out there.
Just you talking what you think on camera and what you've seen.
That's the important bit of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the interesting things about Rochdale that I have to say is, and you take sort of the rape gangs and the vandalism on the cenotaph and that sort of thing. You take that out of the equation, and actually you've got quite a good town where the communities are. Community cohesion is actually not that bad.
And has I know this sounds like an awful thing, but you know, the bombing in the East End brought the East Enders closer together. Has the grooming gang situation brought the community in Rochdale closer together?
I can't say it has, to be honest. No.
Do you think it's actually made them think, though, the grooming gangs? We've got to be very careful. We they're onto us. Although we have been onto them for ages, but now it's sort of magnified.
No, I'm not too sure about it. I can't say that. I can't say I think it has. I think what it's done is it's made an elephant in the room around between the communities. That's all I can say.
And do you think they'll try and make it drift away like they're trying? They just hopefully people forget.
No, but when I say the community, I mean, look. There are clearly the Pakistani community has to do what it's going to do. I'm talking about, if you like, the indigenous white population. What are they? Has it brought them closer together?
Well, I spoke to another lad last night. I mean, you know, he went to school with I mean, he named a load of names of girls who he said he knew were survivors of what happened. And he said, you know, when we were at school, he said we just sort of thought like, you know, they were off in their groups going with sort of like the lads, chilling with the older Asian lads, and we just sort of kept ourselves to our group. They never really thought anything of it, and then obviously years later it got worse. So
I mean, it's fair to say. It's fair to say that what the police thought was going on, what the police quote unquote thought was going on, was that basically, look. A lot of these groomers are drug dealers. Let's just be blunt. They're criminals. They're drug dealers, right? And basically, these girls like hanging out with drug dealers. That's what they thought.
Yeah. They've got the fancy cars, you know, they've got a nice watch.
Yeah, but I saw that Rory Stewart, and he said, it only actually happened in 2 towns, and some of these girls, they basically went to parks and they paid them for sex. And I'm thinking, no, that's rape. If you're under 16, don't matter what you call it, it's rape. It's disgusting, man, what he said there.
No, I mean...
You've got now 5 subscribers, by the way, already.
Lovely.
7 in total. You've doubled it just since you've been on air with us.
Yeah, there's two sort of things going on, 2 angles. I mean, I actually this was last week, I spoke to a lady who was an unreported survivor of a groomer. Now, it wasn't statutory rape because she was underage.
Yeah, just rape.
She wants to remain anonymous, but she was underage, but she was groomed in the way that... she ended up having a load of kids with the guy, and then, you know, once he'd finished having kids with her, he was nowhere to be seen, and he was a married man.
This is unfortunately, Christian. This is unfortunately what's called in India the love jihad, which is these are not actually child rapists. The suggestion in India is, and this is India, not Rochdale.
But they are child rapists.
The suggestion is the motivation is not being a paedophile. The motivation is to have as many new Muslim children as possible. Now, I don't believe that's what's happening in Rochdale and Oldham, but I believe that there is something within the psychology of some of these crazed individuals who do not represent the majority, but I think that there are crazed people who are like that.
It's not all of Pakistan. There's certain areas in Pakistan where these things are a prevalent thing.
Yes.
I think the Punjab is one, you know, there's certain areas of Pakistan where that doesn't go on.
Yeah, no, and I think one of the biggest issues is... one of the issues with the media at the minute, I think there's so many more dimensions to what's going on.
But the problem is, Christian, the media are afraid. Can I tell you something? I organised the campaign for the first Muslim to become the mayor of a royal borough. Which was the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. When Tommy Robinson came to Maidenhead for a protest, he wrote a letter to the mayor. He didn't know what the mayor's name was. That Asghar Majid wanted to meet Tommy Robinson to discuss the Islamification of Maidenhead because he wanted to discuss the issues there and if there were any things he could deal with. Point number 1. Point number 2, I was advisor to the British Bangladeshi Caterers Association when their industry was being destroyed by the COVID lockdown. They own 80% of Indian restaurants, and that's the joke I always make about being awarded Curry Eater of the Year. I have no problem with Muslims or the Islamic contribution to this country, and I am confident when I say that it is not racist to say that just because you're Pakistani you shouldn't be allowed to rape a child. I'm confident in saying that. My problem is that Sir Peter Fahey, the former Chief Constable of the Metropolitan Police, would dearly love to lock you up for saying that a Pakistani doesn't have a right to be a paedophile.
Well, that's the problem that we've got, isn't it? That's the problem we've got.
By the way, we should lock up Sir Peter Fahey. Christian, thank you so much. I personally, I'm going to say this to you. It is a criminal offence for a police officer to ignore a criminal offence. I would prosecute Sir Peter Fahey, the former...
And lots of other police.
But also, can I tell you something else? What about bringing the knighthood into disrepute? OK,
well,
Tristan...
Civic Khan's done that.
Tristan is in a week. Yeah. Tristan in Southend. You're on tour.
Andre, good evening.
How are you, big boy?
It's Tristan, our political commentator.
Yeah, not so political tonight. I'm going to talk about moral standards with you, please. OK, the first one is something very moral, because it's a moral person. That's Lois Perry. Will be in Southend on the 23rd of January at 7 p.m.
What's she going to be doing there?
What's going on the 23rd of January at 7 p.m?
Is it part of your tour?
I'm repeating myself. Lois Perry is in Southend, 7 p.m. on the 23rd of January.
And where is this event being held?
Do you work for them now, Tristan?
Oh, I wish I did.
Are you their PR person?
Oh, chance to be a fine thing. That's with the New Culture Forum. If you follow Lois Perry on her Twitter handle...
And how can we find Lois Perry, Chris?
I believe it's at Twitter... at Lois Perry 26, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it Lois Perry 26 that you can find? Sorry, go on, sorry. I'm taking the mic.
No, you're good. So if I could quickly mention the Taste Less thing.
Yeah.
I've read the Ofcom rules book and the banned list, so hopefully I'm okay.
Yeah.
But Chuck Thomas, if you're listening, have the dump button on standby.
Here we go. Big red.
Right. So an infamous adult entertainment star by the name of Lily Phillips.
Who? Loose Lips.
Lily Phillips.
Oh, right.
Yeah, she probably is, actually. She might
Only fans.
Nah, yeah. She's going to try and break the record for the most, I'll say.
Oh,
slowly.
I've heard about this.
Is it being monitored by Norris McWhirter?
So is this...
Bonnie Blue did 1,000. She's going to beat it with 1,001.
So she's going to have sex with 1,000 men?
In a day.
Backdoor action she's going for. Does this woman not realise you can die from... You can die from it.
I have to say, do you know what makes me...
diseases as
do
well.
you know what makes me feel sad? Do you know what makes me feel sad? And I think, you know, when a young woman thinks, well, my value in life is my anus... You know, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
But she's making, I think, £600,000 a month, so her value is that.
Yeah.
She'd never make any money like in other ways, would you, like that?
What kid sits on the dad's knee and goes, when I grow up, I want to blow 1,000 men?
Apparently a mum helps her now.
It's pathetic. The whole thing is pathetic.
It's terrible.
And it's disgusting.
Yeah. It's Sodom and Gomorrah, almost literally, isn't it?
Tristan, you are right to raise this and to say we need to put a brake on this and say, you know, there is a value to people that is more than just turning your bloody camera on and bending over.
I'll tell you what, Andre...
And if people are offended by that, well, I don't know.
Well, there's not £600,000 a month of value, is
there?
there?
Can you imagine Ken's reaction to my call?
Ken's reaction will be, I pity this person.
Yeah,
and that's my reaction as well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
It's a sad state of affairs. Very sad state of affairs.
Tristan.
And then when somebody sleeps with 1,000 people, then somebody will do 2,000. You know, what's it? And I'll tell you what it ends. It ends in a hospital, but also it ends in societal denigration. Do you know something? I make a few quid. It's because I went to school, I went to university and became good at debating. Just do something well. And what you do well shouldn't be exploitative to you. Anyway, that's annoyed me. Alex is in North London. Alex, you're on talk.
Alex?
Come on, Alex. Yeah. Alex, you're so shocked.
Well, I really don't know where to start.
Well, what do you want to talk about, Alex? It's quite a serious one, isn't it?
It's very serious. First and foremost, I just want to ask, how do we deal with cultural issues without being called racist?
Well, you just have to do it, don't you? You're not being racist just because you say something that is true. They try and deflect it.
But the thing is, nowadays, racism is such a, you can be racist if you're brown against brown, or black against black. And at the end of the day, I think it's been thrown around so loosely, especially with religion.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if a black person calls another one a coconut, that's racist.
100%. And a lot of people, a lot of the noise around is saying, okay, brown person can't be racist or a black person can't be racist, but
of course they can be.
From the black community, I can tell you 100% there's a lot of racism.
What, amongst themselves, you mean?
Well, always remember, Alex, always remember, Damilola Taylor was murdered for being Nigerian. Now, had the perpetrators been white, that would have been an enormous kickoff. It was a racist killing. He was murdered for being Nigerian. But because the murderers were also black, suddenly, let's just forget about that. That's not important.
But also, I mean, look at the Stephen Lawrence murder, which was obviously a racist attack. But when black people kill white people, there's never any mention that it was racist.
No, we're supposed to deny that happens.
Yeah, that's all in denial. It's not racist, no. When it might not be, or it might be.
Well,
some of them are bound to have been.
Especially nowadays, I'd say it's it's really got nothing to do with race, especially in London. But
what's your story? What's your story, Raj?
Sorry?
What's your story?
Alex.
Sorry, what's your story?
So my understanding was that you had a relative who'd suffered some form of abuse.
Oh, okay, yeah. The grooming.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so basically, I grew up in Newham.
Luton, did you say?
Newham.
Oh, Newham, right. Yeah. East London,
yeah. Over like 25 years ago in Forest Gate. And back then, it was openly admitted. And they used to have stalls outside which were given leaflets literally telling you how to groom non-Muslim girls. And
Explain.
That is 100%.
And what did these papers say? What did it actually say? How to,
It teaches you, basically, it was like kind of like a step-to-step guide to being able to eventually manipulate.
But this wasn't written in English, so how would you know?
No, it was written in English.
Was it? And who was giving it out?
Yes. Some dudes outside the mosque.
So you feel that this whole thing, which is called the love jihad,
Street and go on. Sorry.
So you're saying that the whole thing, which was the love jihad, as they call it in India, is happening in Newham.
Yeah, of course. That's why.
But it's not, of course, to me. I mean, that's a surprise to me.
But didn't people take these leaflets to the police? I mean, what happened about that? Because they were good police in that area. They weren't all.
Yeah. To be honest, Muslims don't report another Muslims. There's not one Muslim that reported the grooming gang.
But did you ever get a copy of this paper? Did you ever get a copy of the paper?
I was very young at that time, but I remember seeing it. And then there used to be a newspaper called the Asian Voice or something like that.
Yeah.
Back when newspapers were a thing.
Local, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, this going on in London, basically, and this is what Sadiq Khan says. I don't even know what you mean by grooming gangs.
Of course it's not going on in London. Thank you so much, Alex. Of course it's not going on in London, Sadiq. Of course.
Well, he pretended he didn't even know what grooming gangs was, and they said, well, what about the Rochdale? No, I don't know. Why are you saying it? Because
I promise you that Sadiq, as Police and Crime Commissioner of London, which is what he legally is, I guarantee you that he's trying to avoid this happening. He accused Suella Braverman of dog whistle racism. He demanded that she apologise to the Muslim community for claiming that grooming gangs existed, and he's currently denying they exist in London, despite the fact that a group in Stratford have been convicted. More next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's Talk. It's Andre and Ash at Andre JP Walker on Twitter.
At Virtual Ash on Twitter.
Or X, as they like to call it now. But now it's time for Raj in the West Midlands. What do you want to say, Raj?
Hi, my name's Raj.
Where in the West Midlands are you?
I'm in Birmingham. I'm Birmingham.
Well, why not just say Birmingham? But anyway, what's going on, Raj? What do you want to say?
Oh, basically, I want to say that this grooming thing, it's not new. It's been going on for
since the 70s, and probably before that, but definitely the 70s. I've heard people saying this went on.
Yeah, my parents came here in the 1970s.
From where?
India.
From India, yeah.
From India, and my mum always used to warn me, be careful, and it was going on then, like, you know.
And are you from the Hindu community or the Sikh community? Because I know the Hindu community explained to their girls the signs and how to avoid it, which the white working class and girls from orphanage. So are you Hindu then?
Yeah, I come from a Hindu and Sikh background. Like they target Hindu and Sikh girls and the Christian girls as well.
Well, people who aren't from their religion are seen as fair game. Disgustingly.
Yeah, and I think because you see their women, they have to basically be covered up, and any other woman of any other nationality is seen as a lower woman.
Well, as doesn't really matter, like an animal.
It's like an outcast. It's like having an outcast.
Well, we heard what they called these girls, you know, white this and white that. I mean, clearly racist as well.
Yeah, you're an outcast if you don't belong to their culture or their background, their religion. You're an outcast. And the other thing is, it's about conversion. And what they're trying to do, their motto is to convert as many young women as possible.
Well, we saw it with the Yazidi girls most recently, didn't we? In was it Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Well,
they've
still got some of them.
Yazidis in Syria.
Sorry, in the Syrian Yazidi girls.
Syria, and also the idea is to convert them. And in India, my mom told me that the amount of Hindu girls are being and Christian girls as well, and Sikh girls have been kidnapped and taken away and forced to marry men that are twice as old as them.
And the thing is, it's actually because it goes through the male line, the religion of the child. So it doesn't even matter if they weren't married. If the man does have a kid, they consider that kid is.
Oh, you can be executed in the Islamic world for apostasy, having never entered a mosque in your life.
That is the
for
penalty.
That reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually the thing is, like, I'm actually quite surprised that the British government have actually just pushed it under the carpet. Nothing's been done about it.
That's because we believe that the rape. Sorry, when I say we, not you and I and Asha, but we as a country believe that the rape of young girls is a price that's worth paying for a multicultural society.
And also because a lot of the Labour councillors are now MPs. A lot of them were involved in the cover-up, so they're covering their backs. And a lot of the agencies, the police, you know, social, they all were in on it. They weren't just failing; they were consciously failing. They were enabling. So this wasn't a failure.
Many of the police were supportive of this.
Yeah, the thing is, what's going to happen now, I can actually, and I know it's happened in Bradford before, you've got the Hindus and the Sikh young men fighting with the Muslim guys, with the Pakistani guys. It was only a couple of years ago, there was a massive mash-out.
In Leicester?
And it's going to happen. And in Leicester, actually in Birmingham here.
Well, what's it like with grooming gangs? Because you don't hear Birmingham mentioned, yet we think it's in London, and I've heard rumours in Birmingham that it's going on.
I've got two teenager girls myself. They're both at college. They're at college, and I warn them. But my girls have been brought up really strong and independent young women. They wouldn't fall for guys like that. And I tell them because they've seen other girls. This happened to them. They've gone out. They've dated Muslim men, and all of a sudden.
I mean, not all Muslim men, but there are certain. But the thing is, like I said before, it's the Hindu and Sikh communities know about this from back home as well. So they tell them their daughters the signs, whereas these girls from orphanages and homes, they've not been told that. They're thrown under the.
I don't want to be disrespectful, but what Ash is saying is right. But at the same time, this whole third world thing about you've got to warn yourself against these blokes and all that, isn't it all just best left in India?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the reason I say that is because we've imported this problem. What we could do is we could teach all of our British girls about the signs about the sex pest that we brought in from Pakistan, or we could just not bring any more of them.
Yeah, and Afghanistan, unfortunately, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually work in education, and I actually seen these young guys, the way they look at other women, other young girls. I've seen it, and and I think nothing's been done in the regarding education. We're not teaching them. We are not teaching them anything.
No, because it's the opposite. They're covering up.
No, because it's equal. It's equal but different as far as we're concerned.
It's almost,
Look. If you look at the school buses, then there is segregation on school buses. The girls can sit upstairs and the boys have to sit and stand downstairs.
And classrooms as well.
You know, classrooms. We're going with it. We love it. The reason we love it is because the political left know that they cannot bring about socialism in the world unless they destroy the United Kingdom, the United States of America, Australia, Canada.
For the sake of diversity is what they say. There was in fact a baroness, I don't want to say her name in case I get it wrong, but she said, one of these girls came forward and she said, you should shut up in the name of diversity. She then quickly deleted the tweet.
What about that tweet that pretended to be from a Labour MP saying these girls, once again quoting that, these girls should be thanking us because the benefit of their rape is that they get diversity. Owen Jones retweeted it without realising it was a parody. Raj, thank you so much. Now we've got Yasmin, the teenage witch. Yasmin, how are you?
Hiya, darlings. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Isn't it a bit late to say that? It's the 17th of January.
Just get on.
Anyway, can we get our predictions? We've only got 2 minutes. Yasmin can see the future.
Well, the one thing I will tell you is that when I was in care, it was going on in the 70s.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've heard that. It definitely was
good. Older boys in care that raped younger girls, and I was one of them. And that's when I was in care.
But was that people just general? What community were they from?
That was English.
Right, so that was English, right.
And what happened was the staff turned a blind eye.
Yes.
But before I went in care, I was raped by my own father at 3-year-old. And then I went into care, then I was raped in care. Not just one home, a few homes.
Wow.
And the staff were also having sex with the boys, the older boys. And it was horrendous.
I mean, can I?
Well, we heard about all the Jimmy Savile story and all that stuff that was going on.
Yasmin, I've made jokes about things before, but I just want to ask you this question: has any of this come out, or is it just,
No, I went to the police about it. I told them, and they did nothing when it happened. When it was Asian, my father's Asian, obviously, and
your father was Asian, was he?
Yeah, they did nothing about it because they were scared that there would be a race riot.
So just to be clear, what is taking place in the care homes when you were in care was that the teachers, the social workers were raping the boys, and the boys were raping the younger girls.
The older boys were raping the younger girls, and the staff, one staff member that I know of, was having a relationship with the older boy.
Right.
And that was in the 70s.
Yes.
Well, we have heard that.
Then I got fostered when I was 11.
Yeah.
And when I was fostered between 11-year-old and 14 and a half. And my foster father raped me all the way through
foster.
it.